filter in. So good morning, thanks for coming back. And I'd like to introduce Nathan Watson, who is a longtime developer who has a particular interest in older communities. He has been involved in revitalization projects. I've known him for a long, long time. We lived together in New Orleans, and prior to Katrina, Nathan was heading up a very ambitious project to develop a community of beautiful homes. Unfortunately, Katrina changed those plans, but he landed in the Midwest and has been, landed in Alabama, developing new residential communities, and then landed in the Midwest, where he's been developing properties in Illinois and the surrounding area. And I reached out to him because I have visited a number of older historic towns, and his eyes light up when he sees old buildings that aren't falling on his head. And I thought he could share with us some of the experiences he's had with similar places. And so I will hand over the computer screen to Nathan Watson. Take it away.
All right, thank you. Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be talking to you and sharing some of my experience. As Michael mentioned, for the last 10 years or so, I've been working in largely small towns in the Midwest, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, focusing on largely downtown areas and former Rust Belt towns or smaller towns, populations 7,000 to 20,000 people generally in those areas, with very few exceptions. And we focus largely on historic rehabilitation projects in those areas. So I have a good deal of experience in that. For the past year, I've been working in northern Illinois and Wisconsin with a home builder. Built about 150 homes in mostly Wisconsin small towns, and also is starting to build about 300 plus apartments in the near term in the similar markets. So we're used to working in towns as small as 1,000 people in Wisconsin, where we build new subdivisions and 40, 50 homes, and places where you wouldn't expect much development to take place, as well as up to towns of 40,000 people, but really not much more than that. We focus on the towns in between. Wisconsin communities are generally farm communities. They're not Rust Belt towns, unless you're closer to the Chicagoland area. But there are small towns that deal with some of the same issues of disinvestment, population loss that a lot of small towns in America have faced, and that Monessen certainly has seen. The kind of projects I worked on for the last 10 years ran the gamut on office, multifamily, mixed-use residential and retail, and hospitality. So a good variety of projects. So I have, I think, a perspective for not just for downtowns, but also for developing new residential communities in towns, small towns. I want to give an example of my own town. I live in Peru, Illinois. That's my home base, and it's a town of 10,000 people. It's next door to LaSalle, Illinois, which is a Rust Belt town on the Illinois and Michigan Canal and the Illinois River. Has seen a lot of industry move away, lost thousands and thousands of jobs over the last really 50 years, since the late 70s, early 80s, and has seen a lot of population, small population loss year after year. So LaSalle was a little less than 10,000. And I mentioned that town because I'm working on two projects there for historic rehabilitation for my own business, Cornerstone Development, and they are good examples for how to do development in small Rust Belt towns. And stepping back a little bit from that, I wanted to talk about Ottawa. Now, Ottawa is a town of about 20,000 people, Ottawa, Illinois, not the one in Canada, so much smaller. And it's a town that I think provides a really good example for a turnaround of its downtown in particular. I am going to look for that share button here and share my screen. And I'm going to open up my screen, and hopefully you can see it. Can you see this Google Earth image?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is actually downtown LaSalle, Illinois, and you can see off to the right is kind of a mishmash of ponds and the beginning of the Illinois and Michigan Canal. It's all covered over with green algae because it's no longer in function, but it is actually a little bit of a tourist attraction. Lot number 14 over here, and I'm working on 2 buildings. This is our downtown. It's about 3-4 blocks of commercial buildings. Not all of them occupied, not all of them in good shape. Some of them require a lot of renovation. And I'm working on 2 projects. I'm working on this building that I'm circling, which is called the Armory, and it's 1926 auto dealership in garage. And then I'm also working on this building right here, which is a mixed-use retail first floor and residential units above in LaSalle. And this is a better picture of the garage building. It's just a big square building, but it has some really great features. It's basically a garage with a showroom in the corner. And so these are 2 projects I'm working on in that area. And then if I can get this screen to work. I have a problem with the bar up here is that it doesn't allow you to click the screen you want. Well, I'll tell you what, that's easy enough to do. We'll do that. Okay. All right, I'm screen sharing. Can you, I can see you. Can you see the, are you looking at yourselves at this point?
No, we're looking at LaSalle.
Still LaSalle with the garage.
Okay, all right. Let's see, let me pull this out of here. Well, let us just continue then for the interest of time and technical purposes. I'm going to stop sharing. Ottawa is a downtown, has a downtown that was about 50% vacant. It used to be the big retail center for downtown. It had JCPenney, it had Sears, it had Montgomery Ward, it had Woolworths, it had Carson Curry Scott, all the big department stores. It's where everyone went to shop in the 50s and 60s. And then the mall came on the highway, and downtown became empty, and the small stores shopped. And it had not much going for it. It was empty, barren place. Not a tree or a shrub in sight, all hardscape, twin highway that split the downtown into one-way streets, and state highway that is, and was dying. It's a good example of turnaround because it tells us some of the things that are criteria for rebuilding towns and downtowns in particular. The town is not wealthy. It has demographics very similar to LaSalle, which is household incomes lower than the state average, significantly lower, significant level of poverty in their downtown area, about 30%, significant level of unemployment in their downtowns, about 20%, both very similar in demographics that way. But over 20 years, because of a visionary mayor and a supportive council and community, they transformed the downtown day by day, year by year, into a beautiful place which has reoccupied almost all of the buildings downtown. It did take 20 years, obviously, because it takes a lot of persistence to get these projects done. The mayor led that total renovation of the downtown by leveraging tax increment financing districts and applied to staff, as limited as they were, to apply for every state matching grant that there was every year, whether they were able to get it or not, and then worked with their legislators to push those projects forward. So over time, they completely changed the streetscape. They invested in their streetscape block by block. wasn't a big project that required, $10 million. It was a $300,000 local commitment for blocks 1 and 2. And then over time, they did it all. Because of that investment, it brought other investment into it. And so there was a brew pub that came downtown, a craft brewery that spent $6 million in renovating 2 buildings. And that catalyzed the buildings across the street. Furniture store sales went up 30%. New restaurants appeared. There were existing restaurants. They either had to step up their quality, or they became changed over to new restaurant venues. So it's been a great success, but it really requires that kind of local leadership, a champion, and a great deal of persistence on behalf of the local community. A vision that's a 20-year vision or more. These things, there are no shortcuts to these things. They just take a lot of time. Wanted to take you a little bit to my projects and talk a little bit about them, because they help us understand what's necessary to succeed. And can you see this project with the Armory?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, excellent. So this project is the Armory. This is that old car garage, that I'm renovating into adaptive reuse, into climate-controlled self-storage where the garage is located, and then shared office spaces and a coffee shop where the showroom is located. This is about a $2.7 million project. It is for almost 40,000 square feet. It's been an auto dealership since 1926. The last 20 years, the city owned the building as its public works facility. Like LaSalle is not a wealthy city. It did not have any money did not invest any money in the building for the last 20 years, so it needs a new roof, it needs brick masonry work, and they've moved their public works facility to a building out on a more appropriate location. So that's, you can see some images here of the renovation. Wanted to share also, let's see, this off the screen, let me do this. Work. Okay. And this is just going to make me open up a new screen, but we'll just do that.
Did you say what the source of money was for the Armory?
Yeah, I'm going to share about that. So this is 801 First Street, which is the other building I'm renovating downtown. And I want to talk to you about what it takes to get a project like this done. This one's about a $1.6 million project. It's 6 upscale apartments over retail space, divided into about 4 retail spaces. So for both of these projects have the same capital stack, almost the same capital stack. In the case of the Public Works building, the Armory, the city owns that building, and we entered a redevelopment agreement where I would buy the building from them at an appraised value, subject to a purchase money note that is forgiven when the project is complete. So basically, the city is contributing a $260,000 building to the project. That's a significant benefit for me. So I'm also using federal historic tax credits and state historic tax credit investments in this project. So I have 2 separate investors for those. The U.S. Bank for the state tax credit, and a small-scale federal tax credit investor out of New Orleans for the federal tax credit. I'm also using something called seed-based financing. Most states have enabled at the state level the PACE financing. It's performance and clean energy. So it's basically anything you add to a building that you can finance through this program, which is financed as a voluntary tax on the property, just another vehicle for finance. And it's very attractive. It reduces the senior loan requirement on the project, so that's really helpful. It has to be enabled by a local taxing body. It'd be worthwhile exploring in your area to see if it is. So federal tax credits, state historic tax credits, seed-based financing, city TIF. I'm getting a facade grant of $30,000 for this project. That helps. I'm getting this project, the 801 First Street, a tax rebate because my taxes would be, say, $60,000 a year in this project. if assessed at the renovated value, but instead I'm keeping the taxes essentially at $4,000 a year, which improves the return and reduces risk. And then I'm using senior debt and equity. And that's the same capital stack, same investors on both projects. So real creative, highly layered financing to reduce the risk on the project, to reduce the risk for the senior lender, who's now only a 35% borrower or lender on the project. So it makes it much more secure for them and an attractive deal. This is very typical for kind of your larger small town projects. I mean, these are still small scale projects at this value, but they are large enough to attract third-party investment in the project. And of course, I have a lot of experience in this area, so that's essential to secure everyone's commitment on the project. I enjoy these projects. Michael's right. I do enjoy these projects a lot. Everyone should do what they enjoy and can make money at, hopefully. So these projects are legacy projects for me. So I will hold on to these projects for a long time, and hopefully hand them down to my children who live in the area. And the reason for that perspective is these properties should produce decent annual revenue for me. However, there's not much chance of reselling at market value. There isn't just a robust market for spending $4.5 million on these two projects and finding a buyer who will take me out in 5 years. So it really takes a long-term committed investor. The best kinds for those are the ones that are in your area. So they're going to remain in your area for the long term. There are other types of projects where you don't have to have local developers, and you'll find out about those as well. As I look at these projects and look at the opportunities to develop in small towns, and also kind of sharing the experience I have with the home builder and apartment builder I'm working for as well, these are some of the criteria that I look for and we look for in projects. We need strong local leadership. A champion group it's best if it's the mayor and the council, but it could be like if there's a city manager, if there's a private group that's really supportive of it. You just need a champion who's going to continue to be there over time and continue to carry a vision forward for the project. We look for communities like that. If a community isn't welcoming, it looks like it's going to be hard to get approvals on project or tough negotiations, we'll just go somewhere else, because there's tons of opportunities in small towns out there, and people are basically, coming to us and saying, we have an opportunity, come take a look at this. While the previous company I worked for, everyone was looking for a brew pub, because we had a sister company that did commercial craft brewery, and everyone wanted a brew pub. So people came to us all the time asking for that. Those don't work everywhere, by the way. That's an important thing. You need to make it also less risky for the developers, because moving into a small community is a higher risk. So the local community needs to make it less risky. And you can do that in ways that are beneficial to the city. You always focus on what is the benefit for the city. And I stress that because sometimes people can get caught up in, well, that's a sweet deal for the developer. And the answer is, yes, it is, because it's beneficial for the city, so we will do a deal which may look sweeter, but really all it's really doing is reducing the risk to the developer. So the things that we have found helpful are land assembly. If the city already owns land, I can consolidate land. If that's for single-family development, or it's acquired land for, and the land use plan provides for medium or high density residential, that's very helpful. It reduces our risk on approvals or zoning changes. Establishing tax increment districts, almost essential in every market we work in. It helps pay for infrastructure, either as a pay-as-you-go method if there's not cash available right away, but it's foregoing, for the city, it's foregoing taxes you're not going to get unless these projects move forward. So it creates economic benefit immediately with increased population, and then down the road there'll be increased taxes. And then there's incentives, and many of these are free. That's the great thing about this. A lot of these incentives are free. If you can qualify your downtown or portion of your downtown for a historic, National Register Historic District, then it doesn't cost the city much to establish that. Just a consulting fee to apply to the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service, and that provides an incentive that allows me to do these 2 projects in downtown LaSalle. Could not do them without this. No one would do these projects without the historic tax credits. PACE financing, that's simply enabling. It doesn't cost the local community anything except for the time, the city council, and the mayor to consider it. Very easy. Ease of permitting. Oftentimes permitting, I should say code upgrades. Every year is, almost every year is a new code that comes out, International Building Code. Choose the building code, not just because it's the latest, but because it allows the most flexibility when it comes to renovating historic buildings. You're still applying a code, everyone's still abiding by the code, safety and health, but it provides more flexibility for historic buildings. Sometimes we run into code problems, and really it helps to have a local community that has a building inspector, a zoning administrator that interprets things within the code to facilitate these kinds of developments. And then they clear the path for innovative ideas. Just be open to new ideas for solutions to these kinds of things. I think that kind of wraps up the points I wanted to make today. I think that there is definitely hope in the future for small towns. One of the things we do in Wisconsin is we focus on the in-between towns. So we're not working in Madison suburbs. We're not working in Milwaukee suburbs. They're very pricey. We're working in between areas, small towns, literally, like the town of Eustis doesn't even have 1,000 people in it, and we're building 40 homes there, in that community. And Monessen is an in-between town. So it doesn't have to be in the center of things in order to do well. And also, you look at the region. Monessen's not alone. There's a region and population of about 45,000 people. So it's not as tough as just being a Eustis, Wisconsin that has very few jobs and everyone goes somewhere else to work. You have some benefits there and amenities that I think will help. I appreciate your time this morning, and I'm going to wrap it up. I think I may be a few minutes over, but good luck to you. Wish you all the best in the rest of your meetings today. I look forward to giving a report.
I don't know if, did you have any quick questions for Nathan before he signs off?
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. That was very helpful and useful. We're just checking for questions and trying to get the lights on for a second. There we go. Anybody have any questions for Nathan?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You were mentioning overall the city needs to enforce their codes in order to get the standards of what's going on overall up, but you said flexibility is needed in code enforcement. How is
I'm
that?
saying interpretation. So oftentimes in the code, there's the opportunity for interpretation. Generally, it's spelled out where the local code and building inspector can interpret. And so it really helps to have one, very good knowledge of the code, complete knowledge of the code, so that you can help a developer through those challenging things. For example, in downtown Ottawa, looking at a building that has it's an old Montgomery Ward department store. It's really 4 stories, 3.5 above ground and 1 below, 25,000 square feet. There's the user, it's sort of 1 floor of retail, and the rest of it would be ideal for conversion to downtown living. But we only have 1 stair, and so you have to. If your code says you have to have 2 stairs, you want to know, which is, disturbs the floor plan immensely to add another stair, especially when your first floor is 22 feet high. That's a lot of stair. It takes away 1/3 of your real retail storefront to get a 2nd stair in, and it'll probably never be used, right? It's a code requirement. However, if you understand the code really well, you realize that if you have only 8 units in the upper levels, you don't need a second stair. So it'd be helpful if your local building inspector already knew that and could say, hey, you submitted these plans, there's 9 units. If you do convert it to 8, you only have to do 1 stair. When it comes to, say, historic buildings, if you're looking at, here's a building that has 2 stairs, but they don't quite meet today's code. If some IBC codes will have provision for historic buildings, which allows some exceptions to every single line item in the most, IBC, 2012 or whatever it is. You really, before adopting the codes, you really need to have a developer's perspective on it. Oftentimes they're just done because, well, it makes sense to do the most recent code. But the most recent code may have provisions on energy efficiency that we wouldn't do unless required. Just don't need them. We'd rather pay the utility bill. They might have additional code requirements that are much more like building in Pittsburgh than they are building in Monessen. And we find that in Illinois that we're often are forced to do Chicago codes instead of rural codes. And that increases our cost. It does not increase our rent. We can't get more rent, we get less rent. So we need that kind of flexibility. We need the local bodies to understand that if they want to see development, you can't arbitrarily add additional costs to the development. You really need to think about ways to make it more affordable. You're still applying codes, you're still making sure buildings are safe, but you're finding where you can be flexible and still meet the code requirements.
Thank you.
This is Ron Mozer, the mayor. Let me ask you a couple questions real quick, if you don't mind. First off, we're very much in need of people such as yourself to come in and to have the passion that you have to develop the city. We've laid the groundwork for a lot of this to happen. We just need to find the people that have the thing. As an example, we've gone through a Blythe reduction group program where we've removed a couple hundred homes. That leaves a couple hundred vacant lots. We've got money allocated for developing our downtown area. We've got a music in the park that we'd like to migrate to a more permanent venue, and there's buildings that would be suitable for those kinds of things. We've instituted, or we're in the process of instituting a LERTA project whereby the first 5 years, new developments can go tax-free. Years 5 through 10 increase at 20% each year. The huge tax advantage for people that want to come in and invest in the city. And then we've got an NPP program whereby the state allows tax credits to be used in lieu of paying taxes. You can invest your money in the city and get tax credit for it. So there's a lot of economic things that we're trying to move, but what we really have trouble doing is finding people that have the passion of somebody like yourself that says, yes, this is something that I can sink my teeth into. I want to make it part of my community. I'm locally here. Do you have any suggestions of how to do that, or is that just something that's just got to come out of the wood as we promote these ideas?
Well, I think that it's a very good question. In many of the communities that we've ended up working in over the last 10 years, we're in a similar position. You're a small town. You don't have it's not like there's an audience, a place where you can just go and talk to all the developers who would like to do projects. They don't know about what opportunities are there. They don't necessarily know about all the incentives that you have in place. They may have their eyes on other things. And I think one strategy would be, if there is a clearinghouse on the state level of communities and development-ready communities, that's very helpful. But I would find out who is doing similar projects like these in your region, in the western part of Pennsylvania and the southwestern part in particular. To find out who are doing developments in those areas, and then invite them to your community, organize a developer day, where you show off everything that you have and all that you're willing to do, and capable of doing, showing them the opportunities. I find that very helpful. I have been a developer in attendance at multiple developer days. I have always gained from those, even if I didn't end up working in that community. I like to see what others are doing and what opportunities are out there. I think that's one thing. Do a developer day. Find out who's doing these kind of developments in your area and invite them to these things.
That's an excellent
as well
idea.
as the people who help support these programs. If you can assemble land, issue an RFP, get in touch with the developer community. I have to say, it is a little tougher to reach smaller scale developers. Where are they? Yeah, they're small. And they typically are very busy and don't attend a lot of conferences and things. It's not like the big Urban Land Institute conferences. Those generally are for larger projects. But there's probably a regional council of the Urban Land Institute that might be helpful. Like, how do we reach out to developers? I reach out to the Pittsburgh Council of the Urban Land Institute, ask them for advice about how to reach smaller scale developers, or ask for leads and contacts. It is going to take a lot of effort to make developers aware of what you've got going on there, where the opportunities are. But to the extent that you can lay out for them, these are the programs that we have, these are the particular opportunities we have, it becomes more likely that you'll get a developer interested to start taking a look about and doing the due diligence to see if they can do a project.
Very good. That's great ideas. I like that. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Nathan, I have a quick question for you. Have you found any issues using the historic tax credits or funding from any of the historic agency that provide money from the historic agency
Well,
side?
the good news is this is all private money. And so, money on the state historic tax credit comes from, U.S. Bank. The money from the federal historic tax credit comes from Reimagine Development out of New Orleans, of all places, and a group out of Alabama. And I've been active in those arenas for a long time, so I have a lot of good contacts. But no, the answer is yes and no. The answer is yes, there are compromises you have to make when you're doing a historic property using historic tax credits. Yeah, I have wonderful exposed brick walls, but they used to have plaster on them. Well, to get approval, I'm gonna have to put drywall on it to make it look like plaster. I use my beautiful brick exposed walls, but that's a trade-off I'm willing to make for $600,000. They might tell me I can't put a window in the corner on the side of the building. I have to set it back another 20 feet. And I'm going, well, it'd be a better apartment if it had another window. But I like $600,000, and so it's a trade-off. You don't have to use the tax credits. So if you establish a national register, local historic district, you don't, it doesn't require anyone to do anything. They can paint their buildings, as long as local government allows. They can paint their building purple and put a golden arch on it. It doesn't matter. But if you use the tax credits, you have to abide by the National Park Service guidelines. There are consultants out there that help with that, or historic architects that help with that. And then some of it's simple enough you can just do yourself. And with jack of all trades knowledge like myself.
Thank you.
I had a question. I believe you had mentioned that the extremely important was the mayor and the town continuing this over 20 years, correct? They had that, you had to have the buy, they had to have that. Was it the same mayor, or were there different mayors?
Well, no, it does not have to be. And,
No, I'm not saying it doesn't have to be, but I'm saying once Ron is gone, the next mayor has to pick it up.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So it requires, a community vision that is bought into, and hopefully, the next mayor will buy into it as well and make it their own vision. Or people, you elect people who have the same vision. That's really important. But it's not all about that. I think in your town, you have a strong mayor, so that's really helpful. But the champion can be, hey, a staff member. A staff member who stays on past administrations. In fact, in a little town of Hillsdale, Michigan, there was Mary Wolfram, who was a part-time economic development director for this town of 7,000 people, and she loved her town. And she pushed every lever there was to get, good decisions made at the local level. I would say, in that case, in that situation, the mayor just was along for the ride. We never met the mayor. We built a $16 million hotel in that town, historic building. And, we met him eventually. When you, sorry, Mr. Mayor, we always still have ribbon cuttings. But he facilitated, he never got in the way. In this case, it was a local champion. So the local champion can be any number of people or a group of people. Or it could be a private organization, like the chambers that group.
Right.
I don't know what the situation is there, but you need everyone working together, and you don't need any kind of combative relationship. When it gets into politics, it becomes more difficult. Makes the difference who's elected next time, whether we get to do this project or not. Developers don't like that kind of uncertainty. They want to make sure the community is bought into a vision and is going to continue a constructive path for that, especially if you're going to invest millions of dollars. You want to know that the town is going to continue on a good trajectory.
Nathan. Thank you.
Well, Nathan, I have one last question. Mayor Mozer mentioned that they have a very nice 33-acre plot that they use for a Monessen Park, and it has a little amphitheater on it. What's your feeling about regional entertainment venues? Is that something that is popular these days? Are there investors interested in those kinds of projects?
Yes, I think that outdoor entertainment venues that can draw large crowds is a good way to bring attention to your community. So people see that there's activity, people feel more comfortable going to that area. I think that's the question you're asking, right?
Well, just would that be an attractor that would make sense for a town like Monessen? It doesn't have a lot of population, but it could draw from a region if it had a larger entertainment venue outdoors.
Absolutely, I think it's one of the keys to success in these towns. You're bringing life to your community. LaSalle does that. It has some great. This whole town of LaSalle has some great. Sometimes they draw people from out of town, and sometimes just local folks. But what it does, it creates pride in your community, and a sense of place. That's really important. Ottawa does it on a big scale. They have a Oktoberfest. They have a Kris Kringle market, which is huge now, and like 150 booths for Christmas season, 3 weeks, and then so you can do things like that. And also it has it's developing it has a good number of outdoor musical events and arts events, and I think that's a part of its success. We've seen that elsewhere. If you don't have, I think it just creates a center for the community. And that's why I like downtowns, because you have to have a downtown. It also just you're almost nothing. You can just blend into the next community. The events you do, bringing people downtown, creates a center for the community. And if you want to maintain that continuity of vision, it's just really good to draw your own local community in the surrounding area for special events like that.
Yeah,
Real quick, Nathan, we are looking to develop through our downtown development grant a developer summit coming up, and we were vetting the list. Could we work with you with any help to get that list further developed and who we would want to have at that summit meeting?
I'm having a hard time hearing without a mic.
It's a summit meeting that we're going to hold for developers based upon our downtown development grant that we have. And we're
Yes.
looking to put together the list recently, and we're just trying to see who we would go after and how we would develop a list like that over the next few weeks. Could we solicit your help in that, in any way of the list that you currently utilize to do that?
Sure, I'd be happy to help. I'm not too
Okay.
familiar with the Pittsburgh market. The closest, Monessen, but
Right.
western Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we were-
But the closest I've gotten is Wheeling, Virginia, West Virginia.
Yes, okay.
Which you probably know is a significant Rust Belt town,
But-
and a bit larger, but also dropped from like 120,000 people down to 37,000 people.
Right.
And I think it has a lot of downtown as well as good opportunities. But, I think that I'd be happy to help to see what I can do, and anything I can help, I'd be happy to
Appreciate that, thank you.
contribute.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Nathan. You provide a lot of really good ideas and little great information, so I appreciate you zooming in with us. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, Ron. Westmoreland County. I bet you the people you want to invite are the political contributors to the county commissioner.
Possibly. I do know that Dennis, as an example, has put together a coalition of people that have identified all the businesses that go from Greensburg to Pittsburgh to Washington to Uniontown, and has a mailing list of people like that. I think that would be an excellent source of developers to involve. It's a fantastic list he's put together.
Because money and politics are intimately involved.
Oh, yes.
So the people that are known to the counties are probably the people that you are interested in talking to.
Right. It's also it goes back to something we've talked about a little bit too, that people think about themselves first. So you go to the county's gonna be thinking about where they live as opposed to where we live. There's some personalities that come to play. I'm not saying they won't be a big help to us, but you gotta play the game too.
Well, they already are a big help to you.
Oh yeah, they are, absolutely.
So the more you can get third-party funded as opposed to government funded, the better
That's
off you'll be.
Yep. Downtown Monessen is really, anything that's left to it is because of one particular gentleman here that lives here, who owns Douglas Education College. Without that, this town would have dried up and gone away in the past. He needs to be reinvigorated to continue his development efforts, and he is. He continues to do work, just not at the same rate that he was at one point.
Yeah. The other thing is, I'm not sure that Illinois, which is a county-based system, for code enforcement and a lot of the way things work, is the same thing as Pennsylvania, which largely has devolved a lot of things down to the township and or municipal level. But I think his point about code enforcement is interesting.
We completely redid our zoning ordinance just about 4 years ago, and it was really oriented toward changing the zoning ordinance to promote continued involvement of the city in the historical tradition that we've had, but with reduced ordinances and more encouraging development proceedings. And we have a zoning officer and a zoning ordinance company, K2 Engineering, that does new developments.
But that needs to be part of the summit.
Oh, yes, and they are, absolutely.
Because his idea about an RFP, or what he's really asking for, is a request for information, not an RFP, request for proposals. Proposals would be nice, but I bet you that they're gonna wanna talk to you about information trading first.
Oh, yeah.
And have that before the summit, so that people can request information.
The only thing he said that I have any reservations about at all was he says go out for all the grants and be prepared to do the matching part of it. The matching part of it is very difficult when you're a financially strapped city, and that becomes something that's difficult for us to do.
Unless you have third-party people.
Unless you have third-party investment, yes.
Yeah, and that's the grease that allows the sled to go forward.
Yep.
All right, with the future in mind, we gotta get done by lunchtime, so let's move on. I think that was helpful though.
Yes.
So, today's the day I'm gonna ask you, if you refer back to Michael's talk yesterday, you're most creative in the first grade, so pretend you're a first grader. What we're gonna do is ask you to expand your mind a little bit and to think creatively and openly. This is,
rats, I thought it meant eating crayons.
go sit in the corner, Michael.
Thanks, sorry.
Poor Chuck.
So, yesterday, just to review, what we did was we talked about predictions for the future, so that uncovered our assumptions. We talked about things like jobs are important, education's important, those kind of things. Those are the assumptions we live with. But we're called back to Gabrielle Rizzo's talk yesterday morning. Remember the horse manure problem in 1898? The horse manure everywhere. Had the first international urban planning conference. Nobody could figure out what to do with it, so they just threw up their hands, gave up, and left. Then 10 years later, you have the horseless carriage and the automobile. There's no manure problem anymore. That was violated an assumption. The assumption that they came away with was that this is going to be a long-term problem, and we just going to have to deal with it. Then it just changed, so it broke the assumption. That's what we're going to do today. Is break some assumptions. Your first initial reaction is going to be, that can't happen. That's crazy. But also remember, Michael's talked about the disruptions that come faster and faster. I can tell you things are going to happen that you don't believe today. They're going to happen. And what we're going to do in the heart of this Futures Literacy Lab process is that it allows us to think about some disruptions in this future thing. So my advice is don't fight the scenario I give you. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to be opening your mind. Don't get caught up in today's problems to solve it. Try to think about what can you learn from this situation if you were put in it. Okay, does that make sort of sense? And we'll go through a couple quick ones. You can go ahead and pass out this one. What I'm going to do is go through some of those assumptions we uncovered yesterday and the disruptions that the OECD, the 25 disruptions that I talked about yesterday. And we're going to look at some of those. So this is called the reframing phase of the Futures Literacy. It's to reframe your mind. And if you don't say aha at some moment, I hadn't thought of that, you're not doing it right. You're not thinking hard enough. So that's what we want. The first one is going to challenge that assumption about you need jobs in Monessen in order to survive. So it's called the city without jobs. So if you read the one-line description, Monessen thrives even though traditional jobs have largely disappeared. And again, we're talking 2044. We're going to keep our minds in that epoch. And if you read, by 2024, automation and AI will have dramatically reduced the need for traditional employment. Monessen no longer organizes itself around jobs, but around contribution, learning, and local value creation. People earn through a mix of digital work, community-based exchange, and flexible support systems. Former workplaces have become hubs for collaboration, education, and production. People are not employed, but they are active, engaged, and essential to the community. Okay, so that's Monessen in 2044. Probably not what was in our predicted future. Let's just talk about that. So you're out in Monessen, downtown outside the library on a Wednesday morning. What is it like? What are the people like? Who lives here? What do you think? Just anything. Think it will look like what we look like today, or is it going to be something different?
Are you going to have more young people, more older people?
Well, if it's AI, it's going to be younger people, I think, or at least not young, but
Yeah.
middle-aged.
And by 2044, the kids that are being born today are going to live in a world they never knew without AI.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you don't move for jobs, what sort of town do you want? What kind of town are you going to need to attract people? What's Monessen going to need to look like?
I'm a little confused.
Yeah,
People
good.
won't have to earn money?
How do they live?
Yeah, how do
Yeah,
they earn money?
I mean,
Well,
I don't get that part. I mean,
Yeah.
So-
how does one earn money if one doesn't work for a living?
So I'll give you a personal example. My number one son has lived in Estonia for 2 years, working for Dick's Sporting Goods in Coraopolis, right by Pittsburgh. Corey, well, you put an I in there that's not in there, but anyway, Coraopolis. It sounds better that way though.
You gotta be a Yinzer to.
So,
It's the authentic accent.
but anyway, so he just moved back and he's still working for Dick's Sporting Goods in Albuquerque. But he's getting paid out of Coraopolis, or Coraopolis. So the issue that comes up is, you know, if he lived in Monessen, he'd be here.
Yeah, and read the sentence, the second or third sentence, it says people earn income through a mix of digital work, community-based exchange, and flexible support systems. What does that look like?
What's a flexible support system?
Well, it means the
Sounds like-
internet works as opposed to the library that I can't connect to.
Well,
but
what's
anyway.
that? Oh, okay. Flexible support system sounds to me, and apparently I was thinking in a different direction with government assistance.
No,
Well,
no, he could care less about the government.
I know, but that's the way that read flexible support systems, I needed a better explanation of that.
Yeah, so,
Because it could imply many different things.
Imagine a future where, this is really trying to push at what happens when there's a fundamental change in the nature of work.
Yep.
If robots are doing 80% of tasks that are being done now and AI is doing a lot of other stuff, that'll actually create more wealth, but it won't need people to do it. So there will be some mechanism by which that wealth is still distributed. Okay, people won't have to go to work to get money, but there will be goods and services that are available and they don't have to do it. Okay, so what sort of town would you need to have in order to accommodate that sort of crazy future? And by the way, it's not that crazy. Talk to Elon Musk and other folks. That's what they're talking about, a world of abundance with a decrease in human work.
yeah, Dennis.
So I guess I would see a 2044 Monessen future as a lot of smaller buildings where either using some of the buildings that are salvageable, that are repurposed, co-working spaces, entrepreneurs. It's definitely, you said it's gonna be younger. A lot of these people collaborating with each other. Then the way things are going now, maybe you have some storefront, well, I call them storefronts, but business fronts
Yeah.
that actually provide some working space, but if anything's manufactured, it's off-site.
So that's a good point. So what's the role of remote work in this?
Well, they could have a home office, a home base in downtown.
Yeah.
But they could also, you know, hopefully they would live in Monessen, and, you know, they could go, if they had to go home for work in the afternoon, they could take their computer with them and.
Exactly. So that's a situation where there's really no jobs in Monessen, so to speak, but you could provide the spaces for people to work from here.
And Monessen would still get the tax base because of having the bricks and mortar site.
Yeah.
And it could be a trade-off of services. I have a grandmother that needs somebody to sit with her in the afternoon so that I can go do this, and I will trade off and do this for this person, and we just create a circle of community service where it's by hours of volunteerism. Maybe I hate taking care of people, but I am happy to walk down the street and pick up trash for the city of Monessen and get my exercise and fresh air. And I trade credits that way.
But I don't get where you said abundance, but who has the abundance?
Well, I can tell you, I mean, not walking it in, but the people who are now talking about this coming work change potential for AI, you know, lots of communities even now are experimenting with a minimum guaranteed wage. So if you're a citizen, you get $12,000 a year just for being a citizen, and it's supposed to help with this transition period. A lot of places it's not working out very well. Some places it seems to be promising, and the difference is the political leadership.
I was gonna say,
Because
where does
now-
that $12,000 come from?
Yes, so we're handing, you know, more power over to governmental structures to.
That sounds like a
Wealth, wealth is created by labor and the application of, okay, if that's all done by robots and AI, you still create wealth.
But how
Okay,
does that
then-
wealth get distributed?
Well, the government does it. I mean, because it makes no sense. A company makes things, somebody still has to use it, otherwise there's no reason to make it.
Well,
So
I guess the
it's
thing
just
is-
a very different, it's a different,
I think the history of Monessen lends us to have a little bit of a jaundiced view of that when the mill, they were creating all this wealth, but all the wealth went to the top. They screwed over the mill workers, the mill left, we're left with what we have. So that wealth was not distributed in Monessen the way it
Right.
could have been, or in an ideal
Yeah.
way. So I'm just saying, we're coming at it
Sure.
from that
sure.
background.
Well, and another way to frame this is, one thing we can count on is human nature will be the same in the future as it is today. That's an assumption, but one that has been around a long time. And even in a more socialist system, people have a capitalist tendency. I can tell you from going to China, communist society, it is the most capitalistic place I've ever been, where people find ways to make money in this structure that is meant for everyone to be sharing, and there will be the differences. So one way to imagine this future is, maybe you don't like it, do like it, it can be a possible coming change.
Yeah.
How do you thrive knowing that that capitalist force will still be there? How does it manifest in this system? And Lynn mentions, just one thing where I have a need in my personal life. How do I get that fulfilled at the lowest cost to me possible? So what does society figure into when you've got David Hardy's prediction of robots working in the mill, making money for someone? How am I going to thrive in that? Where am I going to find a niche? And it may be a more capitalistic kind of thing where every individual now is trying to figure out in an entrepreneurial way, how do I make it in this new environment? So what does that look like? What if you had to make money right now, finding the needs that you can fulfill?
Yeah. Mr. Nash,
I don't see how the average person is gonna benefit from this. And even if they develop some ways of generating income, that's still sort of hit and miss. And if all the money's going to the top, or most of it, who's gonna buy the goods? If I'm struggling trying to figure ways to survive and make money, then that's not gonna leave a lot of money for me to buy furniture, buy TV, buy a home.
yeah, but keep in mind, the online description is Monessen thrives, so the assumption, and this is hard, so you have to assume that somehow we figured out a way for everybody to thrive.
This actually is a flatter society.
Yeah,
You don't have bosses living in the big houses because everybody just lives where they want to live. And they get paid what they can earn on the internet, whatever.
and if there's, no, go ahead, Dennis.
No, I was gonna say, I saw something, I know it's not a direct comparison, because it's gonna maybe sound like apples and oranges, but something that shed some light on my eyes about 10 years ago. I got a chance to go out to Youngstown, Ohio, and look at the Youngstown Business Incubator. They're supported because Youngstown University's there, but things can be done on a smaller scale. And what I saw was Youngstown put the money, the incubator put the money into buying one building downtown. They bought a dilapidated building, fixed it, brought all this brain power in. They were using things 10 years ago that we're talking about now. They did 3D printing. They're doing a lot of different things that we didn't see, but it became so successful that they ended up buying 6 buildings. Then they bought a city block, and there's a bunch of different businesses in there. And where the wealth comes from is you've got all these people in there. They're talking to each other. They're creating software. They're creating, the 3D printing and things like that. But again, now you've got a hub of activity in town. That money comes back to the community through one, because you're talking about almost like a public-private partnership in some instances, but where the money goes back through taxes and things like that back to the community. So the community thrives. It goes back to there, plus the people that are working, in these different companies that they created. One of them, they created a software they use for polling that you see on like game shows on TV. One was, I don't play these, the games that some of the kids do, but they had people there, they're creating these games like the things that, they buy in the stores that their kids are playing. And they're creating all this stuff right there. Every Friday then, all these business owners or company owners, they would get together and they would talk and they would bounce ideas off each other for an afternoon every Friday. And one of the things was you can't come in and you can't poach our people. So, but they did talk ideas and they were able to figure it out and they kept expanding. And I can see that happening in communities like this in the future. And that's probably one of the ways it's going to probably help these communities grow.
Yeah, over the next 20 years, your automation will continue to expand. We will do more and more things with less and less people. Okay? How does Monessen prepare itself
Right.
for a community, for a world in which that's simply the case?
And we talked yesterday about the sense of purpose that going to a traditional job provides.
That was just thinking on that.
Yeah, what do you do instead? How do you provide that sense of purpose if it's?
Yeah, how do you make a community that's still attractive, where people want to live and have fulfilled lives in the face of that happening?
What we're really talking about Gene Roddenberry's view of Star Trek. You have replicators that manufacture things. You have people that don't value money whatsoever. Everybody, there's 1,000 people on the spacecraft, but yet you have doctors, you have engineers, you have people. What are the other 900 people doing? I mean, somehow or other, people have got to evolve into a different mode of operation that's going to be forced upon them with AI, I believe.
Well,
But
yeah,
nobody ever has to
automation
go to the
provides-
bathroom.
So again, humans are social creatures.
Excuse me?
Humans are social creatures. We still, to be happy, we require a society or a structure that we can live in. Okay, work often is something that provides part of that, but it's not. So how do you create a community where people feel fulfilled when work isn't the primary thing that drives them? I mean,
Yeah, great.
that's
What?
What's it gonna look like?
Yesterday, what would this building be if we didn't have traditional jobs?
Well, I want to come down here because my robot has been working on, figured out how to massage my feet. But he hasn't really necessarily done something in my house, and I want to see what other people have done
Right.
to train that robot to do something different.
humans will still have a huge desire to interact with each other.
Right.
And
They'll have hobbies.
they'll have hobbies, and people will do things more because maybe they want to do them, not because they have to do them. I don't know.
And I understand that it doesn't sound good to people because people are afraid of change. This is going to be a radical change. But when electricity came along, that radically changed this society. When the telephone came along, it radically changed society. AI is going to have every bit the same impact that electricity
And
has.
it's gonna come faster.
But
It's gonna come back.
there's a difference, correct me if I'm, those created actual jobs for people.
Oh, they eliminated jobs too. motors. You didn't have to have horses. You
But
didn't have to have.
But I mean, they
people to
created,
run
like, is AI doing the opposite?
Well, look at what steel plants have done.
I don't know, that's a question I don't.
If you bring steel back here, how many people is it gonna employ to do the same thing? Not very many. It's
That's
gonna
my
be
point,
pushed back.
exactly,
The point being, you gotta figure out a way to adopt it and to grow with it.
yeah.
It's not gonna be the same. It's not gonna be the same.
I
that's it.
agree.
And
And
So this is a.
guess we have a hard time imagining that world, I can't
Well-
even put that mental block.
Good.
Good. That's why we're trying to.
Old assumptions.
That's what we're trying to challenge you to.
Yeah,
Go ahead and think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us know precisely how that's going to evolve,
yeah.
but you need to think about, if you're thinking about 20 years in the future of Monessen, then things you decide now
Yeah.
will decide how well are you positioned for a
For example-
future that might look like that.
What investments do you put in this library? You're thinking about that. Karen, you had a question.
I read too many science fiction.
Excellent.
books. So this scares me with this conversation about the lack of human interaction. But another thing, I don't know if you, Bishop and I, about a month and a half ago, had occasion to tour a building down at the east part of town that's owned by somebody from out of town. It's been vacant since 2016. And there were, a friend of mine had an idea to maybe this landlord would start renting out part of the building again to service industries, because at one time there were doctors and everything in there. So we toured it, and I think we were just stunned with how nice the building was, and it is vacant.
Yes.
Nothing is in it. It's a 4-story building, beautiful. They had a water problem, so they redid all the walls, they put carpeting in. It has it's a square, so the middle part is empty and everything, but very futuristic looking. But if this guy, I mean, I could think all the different businesses that could be in there, and all the different activities, and it's not rented, and that's his choice, and he pays taxes. But if you would tour that building, you'd say, what a waste.
So that's, the person we're talking about is in India, and I've been talking to him quite a bit. He is very willing to rent that building, but he wants to rent it in such a way that he benefits at the same time.
Sure.
He wants it to become a partnership with the hospital. That's what he wants. He wants somebody like UPNC, AHC, or somebody to come in, occupy the building. He provides all the medical equipment. He manufactures ultrasound equipment. He manufactures all different kinds of medical devices. He wants to provide that stuff to them in return. He wants it to be a partnership. Now, I've yet to get him to define that partnership in such a way that you can actually go to an AHC or UPMC to make it happen. But he is very interested in making something happen there.
But to your point,
But he's an
Karen,
older man, isn't he? You
He
said.
is.
So in the meantime, that could be, when we thought the day we were there, they had the heat on, it was 82 degrees in this open air building. And I thought, what is, practical, what was the gas bill for that every month? And how is he benefiting by not renting that building and have it, I just think, have it used. You could even put apartments in there. I thought, boy, I could live here and I could look out at the river every day of my life. I'd be up for that.
just to focus on the future, the 2044, what could that building be in this world where it could be remote workstations again,
Exactly.
or,
Well, of course, I'm maybe a bit biased here since I'm director of the library. In that 2044, if people have free time, what better place to go than the library?
darn
Maybe
too.
the community center.
And I've,
Yeah, so this could be
Yeah.
the center of the community.
right.
You know, people forget, again, we have more free time, if you do any analysis. Americans have more free time now than they have ever had in all of history. It doesn't feel that way because we've figured out all sorts of ways, you know, sports and all sorts of other ways in which we fill up that time. But if you actually look at what a woman had to do in 1900 in order to run a house and what she's able to do now, I mean, we just forget that. Now, extrapolate at least that much change in the next 20 years, and maybe 10 times it, we don't know, but just get prepared for that. What does that mean? I mean, what does it mean for how a town runs? And what,
Are we?
yeah, library, you know, people are still gonna be social creatures. If you decrease their requirement for labor, they're still going to want an increase in ways in which they interact with each other. So how do you build a town that is really attractive because it allows people to have all that other things to do? That's what we're trying to poke at for you.
Now, what's the
Think about it.
library, do you know how long the bond issue still runs to? That the city's paying, is it like
20 years.
I mean, it's like almost the same time frame
Right.
as we're looking at is, so, my point to that is the city will be paying on this building through that loan, that bond issue, up until almost this point. So use this
It'll be
building wisely.
refinanced
Well, I guess my point is to
twice.
use this building wisely because it's gonna be, you're gonna be paying on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I think
Well, let's,
this should be one of the focuses of the
Absolutely.
town, and that Ron and Mike have been that. And I will say, I'm not gonna benefit, because I'm retiring in a few months, so I'm not doing this for any kind.
What-
But I believe that the library should be one of the cornerstones.
so only with you. One more question though, before you leave, so this is hard, you said you can't believe this, so what is it that this why is it so hard? What's the fundamental thing that you have to change your assumptions or belief systems?
Where the paycheck comes from.
Yeah, how did it work,
Yeah, there's something there.
Could I?
And what do you?
Yes.
I have a member that worked in Pittsburgh at one of the medical hospitals. And they called her whole group in and said they were gonna lay them off because AI was doing the work. And so now, they're like scuffling, working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to generate the income. that we're having. So it looks like to me, this has a possibility for people not to have less time of leisure, but to even be more tied up and involved to make ends meet.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, Bishop, that's a great point. Again, how does Monessen, if this is going to happen, it's going to be a turbulent transition time, okay, to say the least. So how does a town like Monessen prepare itself for what can be a very uncertain and confusing transition
I
time?
can only speak to my daughter, my daughter's 21, her friends, they have a totally different, and I don't know how studies are done or whatever nationwide, or that they have a totally different look on what work should be. They don't like that, oh, I'm not going to the 9 to the 5, I don't want my boss to tell me, so I think if you could sort of, is it smart to gear towards that generation moving forward, right? But they're the ones who, we have to realize that doing that they're okay with that. Whereas we're sitting here thinking, oh, we're used to working, but they don't want to work. They don't want to go to an office job. They don't want to go to a coal mine. They don't want to go to a steel mill.
How are they living then?
That in this future, they'll be living fine.
No, I'm talking about now.
Well, we're not talking about now. We're talking about 2024, how they live now.
I understand that, because if they're getting income now,
Yeah.
and they don't care about it, when we make the change, they will care, especially if they have families and.
But they won't have to work for the money
Well-
as much. They won't have to work as much for the
But a
money.
lot of these jobs are more higher tech. I'm thinking, my son lives here in Monessen, he teaches Alaskan students. My son-in-law is an electrical engineer, and he works at home for a nuclear power plant. Both of them are pretty bright people. What about that segment of the population that it's not so easy to go online and do these kind of jobs? We know what we have to deal with now with them, with the few jobs we have. So what do we do? Well, that is and it isn't, but we're always gonna have that segment of the population. It's generational. They haven't worked, their parents haven't worked, their grandparents haven't worked. And they can do maybe some kind of labor, but they're not gonna go online and do these high-tech
That's right.
jobs like
That's correct.
my son-in-law.
So,
So what is there for them?
well,
That's the community.
Is that our
service.
problem though?
you,
That's the community
Seriously, if you wanted
They could
Monessen
work
to
for their kids
2024, you can't worry about every single person.
Just go to Hazard, Kentucky 10 years ago, and they had that. Everybody had a paycheck because the government was giving them a paycheck, and they resorted to things that are not acceptable in society. Fighting chickens and fighting dogs and things like that.
That's where you need to bring in this idea about culinary excellence and
Yeah.
working in restaurants.
Yeah,
It's not a
there's
bad
always
job.
gonna be a few things like feeding people that are.
Yeah.
you know, humans,
Service will still be there.
Service jobs are still being
Maybe.
there, I think.
Robot brings you.
humans are still hierarchical, they always will be.
I hope.
You know, we're gonna want to be able to interact and figure out our place with each other. Work has always been an element to defining that. It's just gonna be, you know, think about a world in which it's much less so.
Yeah.
And how do you build a community that's successful? We're not saying it's easy, folks, we're just making, you know, we wanna expand your mind to think about, how do you do it?
For a good reason.
We don't have the answers, by the way.
And this is.
I'm not hiding the correction, but, you know, the correction at the back of the book.
This is one of those OECD disruptions that is forecast for the future. Better start thinking about it now, that's the whole point. Okay, break brains, let's do another one. That was so much fun.
Well, it apparently really did get you thinking.
Okay, we talked about education yesterday, and the importance of education, and the assumptions about education. So this is a scenario built around that. Monessen becomes a place people come to learn, not to work. So this is completely different than the last one, but traditional education systems have evolved into flexible lifelong learning networks. Monessen has reinvented itself as a distributed learning center where people of all ages come to gain skills, teach others, and participate in real-world problem solving. Buildings once used for industry or retail are now host studios, labs, and living learning environments. The city's identity is no longer tied to what it produces, but how it develops people. 2044.
Sounds beautiful to me. How do we make it happen?
How do we make it happen? What would the library look like then? I love being in the library for these
So
questions.
this is along the lines of the discussion we had yesterday about schools and why we need to have more trade schools, technical schools, because like the last scenario was talking about how do you retrain all these people? And what are you retraining them as? Well, that needs to change.
What about the craftsman comments we
Well,
had
and-
yesterday about bringing in people who are, high craftsmen, and now they could not only do their craft, but train others to do a craft, like delicate carving and whatever.
Well, like, we used to have a coat factory here, apparently, and, somebody was the expert in making coats. That's a craft, and now it's not there anymore. So, but is there a market for high-end coats anymore? I have no idea. I mean, the London line of coats used to be kind of premier.
Yeah, right?
I can remember my grandmother buying.
What
So
else?
there are cities that have moved towards this in my mind, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there are cities that are driven by universities that have developed technology that even you've identified with Space Force that are well known for creating things for a particular industry, space as an example. That how do we get to the same mode where we're doing the same type of things?
You'd be surprised how many parts the University of Michigan, for their space nuclear power program, buys from just local fabricators. And they say, oh, we want this plated a certain way, and the fabricator figures out how to plate it with, the specialty metal, that type of thing. But that's the type of thing that becomes more accessible due to technology, because, instead of having to send it off to some weird place in California, you can just figure out how to do it yourself.
So if we knew this future was in our future, what would we do with Douglas College? How would that change?
We could expand.
It needs to
Is it
expand.
more important or less important?
I think it'd be more important.
And we talked yesterday about, university enrollment is contracting. It's becoming less and less desirable to get a college degree. There's a big push to things like micro certificates in a very specific area that you want. How can Monessen benefit from that?
Too many young people today don't want the liberal arts education. Why do I have to take 12 hours of history classes when I want to do this, They just don't see the value.
Why do schools look the way that schools look today?
Yeah. After they can read and write and do simple figuring, and we just let them explore.
Well, I will just say, getting back to the idea of ethical levels, perspectives comes into play in this discussion. We need to remember, what are we trying to achieve? Why do we even want Monessen to exist?
Right,
20
what values
years?
does it serve?
Right. And as David points out, we do on paper have more leisure time. When I did my little review on Monessen back in the 50s, the typical work week was 80 hours working over at the mill. 80 hours a week of punching the clock. Today, no one would take that job, right? 80 hours, forget it. But statistics show, and I had some slides about this yesterday I didn't get to show, which is just examining people's basic happiness. Although statistics show that people have more leisure time now, they are, by measurable criteria, more stressed out today than ever, more worried about the future. Meanwhile, if you take just a typical citizen and look at the food they get, the fact they can get on an airplane every once in a while, this makes them have a lifestyle that Solomon would have envied, right? Air conditioning,
If I hear one
running
more-
water.
Yeah, if I hear one more parent complaining about how stressed they are out by how they have to get all their kids to all of their extracurricular activities.
Right. And so if
I will lose it one day and say,
if our attitude is we somehow have to make people happy, well, we're never going to win that battle, no matter what the future looks like. So
Right.
do keep in mind, as you're thinking about these problems, what is it that we're trying to achieve and why do we want to maintain Monessen as an entity? What is it gonna serve? And if we want Monessen, you know, it comes down to, people will always want to control others. They'll always want to have a little more than their neighbor. They're going to feel stress over these things. So if Monessen really is what you're committed to, you have to address the question, how do we make Monessen better than Charleroi or Pittsburgh or whatever? What is it about here that is that attractor compared to the others? So
And not just a school where people get skills, but a school where people get all of the knowledge they need to be happy and successful people. You know,
better than
particularly in the future where we have more automation and robotics, it's how do you provide people information that allows them to be happier people? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, that's certainly not the education system we have now, right? I mean,
So one of the things that makes people happy is working with their hands and building things, and crafting things. We talked about craftsmen yesterday. What does that look like? I mean, what comes to my mind is the big warehouse buildings down by the river. Those could be artist, craftsman colonies where people could come learn how to do metal trades, big things. What else would Monessen do if we were the place you came to gain skills and knowledge?
Why can't that be the niche then, Joel? Why can't the Mon Valley, when this country was growing, was one of the industrial,
right.
yeah, we had more productivity here than almost anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
People here learned, I mean, they were blue collar people, they worked with their hands, they did a lot of that, but they also have the knowledge of how they did that. Why can't we take advantage of that? And I understand with things changing, but they could help program, you know, the future AI for doing these types of things.
Absolutely, and there's something happening today in, there's books written about this, but today manufacturing process knowledge is not centered in the United States, it's centered in China. China has the process knowledge. If we wanted to bring that back so that we do know how to produce goods, and Monessen became the center for teaching people process knowledge, because you're still gonna need chairs and, you know, things. That's something to think about. Want another one? These are fun.
But along that line, I will say I had a frightening talk with a woman who works for Anthropic, which is one of the major AI companies out there making Claude. And she told me that the newest version of their large language model, Claude 4.3, whatever it is that you can access for free online, that 60% of that code was written by the previous version of Claude. And their goal is to get the AI to write a larger and larger percentage of the next one. Their stated goal is to get to the place where AI is constantly improving itself without any humans in the picture. It seems like they're fighting against us.
The way they trained the early computers to be the greatest chess masters in the world is they simply divided it in two and had it play each other. And it could play thousands and millions of games over and over again. And it would simply figure out strategies based upon millions of iterations.
That's incredible.
Such that nobody can beat a computer. In fact, what's interesting about AI is it's hard to go in and figure out exactly what they figured out. It is.
Here you go, Michael.
Deeply buried.
All right.
All right.
Engineers live.
Fourth scenario, the 100 factory city. In 2044, Monessen has become a network of small distributed production hubs.
Yeah.
Instead of relying on large employers, Monessen hosts dozens of small, highly automated microfactories. These facilities produce specialized goods for global markets using digital advanced design and advanced manufacturing tools. The workforce is smaller, but highly skilled, and production is flexible and decentralized. The city has returned to making things, but in a completely different way. So I imagine in that factory building down on the river, there's a whole bunch of little micro advanced manufacturing stations, a few people working there. Orders come in from all over the world. I need a I need a new dongle for my computer. That gets routed to a bunch of little factories, and here in Monessen, they're making the end piece of it. And that happens, and it gets shipped to the next customer. So it's largely a bunch of micro manufacturing, lots of production flowing through the city, making money.
There might be businesses that make a business off of advising the manufacturers how to put the thing together.
Yeah.
It'd just be purely engineering advice.
Lots of engineering. So what do we think about, yeah? Karen?
I recently had a mouth guard made.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if anybody's had any dental work made or braces or anything recently. And it was all electronic. They had a wand, they wanded my mouth,
Right.
they put it up on the computer, 3D, and she said, by the time you get to your car, this will be in Florida, where they're
Exactly.
making, so I could see a little business like that here, because I wouldn't think you'd need massive amounts of space to manufacture dentures and things like that, but this is in Florida. It would be nice to have it here.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah, and that was new to me. I didn't know that they even did that anymore. I was amazed. I thought it was so neat.
Yeah.
Well, I did have something done, and they just printed it right in the office.
Oh,
In the dental office. They didn't have to send it to Florida and have it shipped back, and that is becoming more the model.
Yeah, because
You-
if Florida gets the color wrong, they gotta send it back to Florida, but with his, they can just say, change the color.
The
You're saying
Navy
they
has
could-
machines on ships these days. They don't have to keep an inventory of spare parts, they just print parts on
They got
demand.
3D printers on the space stations. When you need a tool, you print it out.
They can 3D print whole houses.
Yeah.
yeah.
And those cards we use,
Yeah.
we just designed them on the computer,
Yeah.
and my son found somebody
pretty
who could
neat.
print them.
Rather than
Within
Wisconsin.
5 days, we had the cards. Those glossy cards, those were just done in a few days.
Yeah, yeah.
It's magic.
Wouldn't this be basically what I said yesterday? This would just be Monessen again of my youth, because instead of 5,000 people being employed in one place, there'd be 5,000 people employed in 20 places,
If
40
they
places.
weren't pushing around a lot of steel, they'd be pushing around little
Whatever
bits of,
material.
That's what I mean, yeah, so it would be,
yeah, manufacturing, but it's,
yeah,
So what's,
Yeah, but
safer. Safer.
most of
Yeah.
big,
Well,
most of bulk things are done by automated robots. You know, what's the sort of businesses that you can still have? By the way, don't forget that 70% of the economy is services. Even if we automate things, people are still going to want to be able to do things for other people. I mean, I'm not sure I'm gonna want a robot cook my fancy dinner. I'm probably gonna want a real human chef. So, you know, what are the sort of service things that you can orient around that?
yeah.
but you have a much more diverse,
Right.
you know, all the different jobs and the things that the conversations, the richness of interacting with, I'm trying to do this and I ran into a problem, and then having those other people there to brainstorm with, because they're all facing similar challenges.
So here's a question. What does the role of the river become in this environment?
Get rid of the coal piles.
I'm thinking we could just dump our trash. Carries it away, right?
Probably becomes less industrial,
That was a joke.
because you're not gonna need as many barges. If you're, well, right now, most of it's on here is either coal or aggregate, so,
It's not big
I've
bulbs.
seen the
Yeah.
old chips.
so but I think it could be, it's still, the river's gonna have a purpose, because it's still, we need it
Still need raw
for,
materials.
and we don't need it for drinking. And
Ah.
we also, and it serves, it's a necessity, but it's also recreation and it's commercial. People like to, it's a activity where people like to go and look at the river, and
Yeah.
so,
So just a question, do you still need the railroad that brings in the coal and hauls out the coke?
Because it really does screw up trying to do anything with your waterfront.
yeah.
Just imagine the beautiful parks and relaxation areas and restaurants and venues you could build along the river where people want to be, and the fishing tournaments you could have, and all those other things. Yeah.
But if you go to smaller micro type things and you don't have the bigger buildings that are taking up the riverfront, you can free up space where you could put trails and access to the river and make it more public.
Yeah,
Yeah. Keep those parts that maybe are architecturally interesting, to highlight your past, but still move forward.
So if this is the future, and again, this is another OECD disruptive future, are there some decisions you might make?
Well, it's interesting to me that all these scenarios thus far, and I suspect the last one will be the same way, has a skills or education component to it that is required to get people up to snuff. And I think about my grandson, and I don't know that he's particularly unique or anything else, but his mother goes to the school system, yeah, he's doing fine, he's no problems whatsoever. But yet he can read at a 3rd grade level and he's in 1st grade. He does multiplication in his head, and he can identify a car by the headlights. Any car you want to throw in front of him. The point being is, he learned not from schools, not from his mother, not from anything, but because he had an iPad. And his mother controlled the iPad very much so that he could only do certain things on it. But he would research things. He learned to multiply in his head from an iPad. He learned to read by sounding out words because he did it on the iPad. He learned these skills not through a school system or something else. There's something bizarre going on with this kid. I don't know what it is, but it's not the standard way of learning things. And he is far advanced. His mother pulled him out of a charter school because they're not giving him enough room to grow. He wants him to go into a public school in the 3rd grade level. He's barely in 1st grade right now. It's just different. And I'm not saying that he's unique or anything else, but I'm saying that that is a different way of learning things than what traditional schools have done. Somehow or other, that's got to fit into everything that we're talking about here.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Learning is different.
When you put a bunch of kids in a classroom, you have one teacher, and depending on your school district, it may be at the lower levels, it's 20 kids, but by the upper, you're talking 30. And doing an individualized assessment of where that student is and being able to take them to their maximum potential, it can't be done because our kids are coming in with such different experience levels. And they spend the first 2 years trying to level the playing field. Well, maybe we gotta say, forget their age. What is their ability? And can we just forget you gotta enter kindergarten when you're 5. Some kids aren't ready till they're 6 or 7. Some are ready when they're 3. How do we adapt and say, you know, we've got too many old-fashioned ideas, and I'm sorry, the school board guy isn't here, but it's time to really look at education.
I agree with you.
Well, I know, but I taught high school, and it's like, I had some freshmen that were ready to mature, and they knew what they wanted, but they were being held back by the system.
But that's obviously,
Yeah.
this group needs to make this same thing to the school board, not the mayor and council,
Yeah.
to affect anything in education, obviously.
A couple of us are headed to the high school after this today.
But the one exception to that is child labor laws. You know,
You have a
Well, I'm
10.
not trying to say put them to work, but they are sponges. They just absorb.
you want to have them apprenticed at an earlier age.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's different than child labor.
Yeah.
It's,
Mayor,
the inertia is.
in a world with social media, the question is, what's a school? School has 2 functions. One is giving people knowledge. The other is helping socialize them. And so what, in a world saturated with social media in the future, how do you produce an education system which is more personalized to their ability to acquire skills, but also is attuned to the requirement to make them socialized as good citizens?
Absolutely. You need to be on the school board because that's
Yeah.
the problem.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and how do you,
First of all, I'm a cell-phone school.
get the truth? Because right now we've gone from, and I guess this has been true with newspapers, is you had one newspaper reporting something and the other, but now it's happening within minutes of an event. And with AI, where I can take that video footage and do whatever I want to it, and it looks real, how do the kids know what's true? And we don't have a bunch of cults and crazy, you know, how do you get them to understand? Because I know that's one of the big things that they teach is how do you tell when you go to a website that it's valid and has, you know, rigor and.
Okay, let's do the last one here.
I hope it's number 2. It's really bugging
We
me.
skipped
No,
2.
we
Skip
skipped
2,
two.
Oleana? Oh,
Secret.
man.
No, we
That
decided
was
that.
too controversial.
Now, really, two was about the river, and it was trying to get at how changes in the river flow would affect.
Okay, can we just call this one number 2?
Is it possible?
That's right.
The engineers are having trouble.
Nobody said that this was a numeric progression. Those were just numeric designators.
Open your mind, Michael.
Michael, 2 was an experimental error, we had to take it out of the average.
That's right. No.
Okay.
He's doing this on
The
purpose.
place people choose, this one's for Karen, so thank you for inspiring this one. Monessen becomes a destination for people seeking a different way of life. And this is another OECD trend. As large cities become faster, more expensive, more overwhelming, people begin choosing smaller places that offer community, affordability, and quality of life. Monessen attracts remote workers, families, and creatives who value connection over scale. The local economy is built around small businesses, services, and experiences. Growth is intentional, not rapid, and success is defined differently.
You know, it's interesting to me that the people that I know that have moved to this city, which isn't a lot of people, have come here for this very reason.
Because it's a charming place to be.
It just has something that attracted their attention. They thought it was a great place to come to.
I think one thing is safety.
Yeah,
You're gonna feel like you're moving to a town where you don't have to worry about crime.
yeah.
Unless you're dealing drugs, but, yeah.
Well, but think about,
We're not tracking those people.
He is.
yeah, but it's just so busy. You don't want sirens going off every half hour and lights
Yeah.
flashing going by your apartment building, and you have,
Yeah.
you come to,
Yeah.
if you,
Once I had to
in a big
spend
city, yeah.
4 months in San Pedro, California in source selection, and every night, every hour, there was an ambulance or a police car screaming past my hotel window.
Yeah. Every time we go to DC, it's just like one after the other. It's like, I'm sorry, the windows are not soundproof enough in the hotel.
So what's the role of beautifying this? Why it's yours, Karen? Beautifying the city, making it, would you invest in that if this is the future that you want?
Well, I certainly would, because
Yeah.
one thing that I find very offensive is all the litter
Yeah.
and all the weeds and the sidewalks that are up like this and people stumble over them, but I do not know how to motivate people. I can sit and watch people walk right by trash and they don't pick it up.
Yeah.
And they don't like bend down and pull down a weed. I don't know how you motivate people to have pride in your community, because how do I try to encourage somebody from outside to come here and we can't keep ourselves clean? And
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it. It's,
But what I'll say is Ron showed me the park at 10th and Knox, which is a very pretty park that's being kept clean. What you said is that you provide something nice, people will keep it nice.
a lot of litter in that park, on the hillside and across the street and everything. When I took a walk a couple weeks ago, a friend and I, for all those alleyways.
Yeah.
And I looked there, because we do a cleanup there, and all through the hillside, people stand up above and they throw their beer bottles down over, and the glass is all over the hillside. Like, get real. How do we stop people from, I mean, they live there. It's like you foul your own, they always say birds don't dirty their own nest, but as human beings, we certainly do. And I don't,
Well,
unless
doesn't the
they're.
glass kind of capture the sun and the sparkling?
It does.
You don't want it.
It does, but again, I just don't I don't get that. The old people used to go out there with their little things like this and trim the weeds down. They would be mortified to see what Monessen's become today. How do you get people to take pride?
Right.
I don't know.
You know, one thing I notice is just me, when coming in downtown, it's a classic, brick building, brick facades. One thing that just detracts from it is the power lines that run down the streets. And you probably wouldn't, I'm sure Mayor Mozer would not think to invest a bunch of money in burying those power lines just because. But if you're looking for a future where you're dragging people into Monessen, because that's where they want to be, that might go up a little bit on the priority. It's things like that to think about.
Put that on your list. Bury the power lines.
That's what impressed me about DC. I went to seminary down there. All the power lines on the ground.
Yeah,
You
makes
don't
a
see all
difference.
that.
Makes a difference.
And if you have a lot of storms in your area, it does
Yes.
minimize a lot of the disruptions, because wind ice, snow isn't taking down your infrastructure. And you have those giant sewer that I know a lot of towns actually tap their power and stuff to the ceiling of things like that underground, and that's how they run it out.
Has that ever happened that you know of, that an old town actually put money into burying their lines? I mean, have you ever heard of such a thing?
It's generally the power company that does that because of the fact it saves them money over the long term. And plus, they can include that in their rate base and get, well, I mean, this is your power bills, but spread over all.
We don't want to get any.
One of the things that I hope that happens is when Dennis figures out how to market the downtown Donner, 5th to 6th Street, that whoever comes in there to develop it, first thing they do is they bury all those lines. That's gotta be, it's gotta be development driven in my mind. The developers will demand such things because they're invested in the property. They don't want the power lines running down in front of the place. They can help or even provide the money to do such a thing.
One thing's for sure is that all the old buildings that have ancient electrical systems, they all have to be upgraded anyway. So your total load will become higher. And chances are those overhead lines are not rated high enough for redevelopment.
It's interesting to me that this town is somewhat unique. It's got 3 different sources of power coming in. One coming in from the east, one coming in from the west, and one coming across the river. And people like the plant across the street has access to all 3 of them. They have this big network that they can switch power depending on what's available and where it's coming
The
from.
cheapest source.
The point I'm really getting at is the city was built at a time when electrical energy was thriving. Back in the early 1900s, when electricity plants were coming in, we got big power lines, big transformers, big everything. When I got a phone call here a few months ago from the guy that owns the MRIP, the people that own those big buildings next to the Charlevoix Bridge, Monessen Charlevoix Bridge. There's 218,000 square feet there. He calls me up one time and he says, I need 8,000 amp service. Whoa! All of a sudden my brain's clicking. First off, yeah, that's gonna require an upgrade, but why would you need 8,000 amps? That's a major factory you're talking to. You're trying to bring something in here that's major. Now, it fizzled at the onset because it never happened, but that's the kind of thinking that I think that people need to be thinking. Although we have huge power facilities here, there is gonna be a time when we need a lot more.
Okay, we only have a little over an hour left, but I imagine a break would be in order. So let's take a 10-minute break and then we'll finish the whole event off. And we have gifts for you. Come back, don't leave.
The best is yet to come.
I will be in touch.
All right, then, yeah. Let's talk Friday if we can,
They're
yeah.
gonna do a summary of like everything here.
I'm pretty sure, yes. And then we have the information for our guy Nathan, so we can maybe get in touch with him.
Yeah, give me, yeah.
I'll forward that to you.
Get that to me as well.
Okay. Good seeing you, pal.
You too.
Okay.
It's a nice meeting you. Yeah, sorry I gotta run, I have a meeting, so that's where I gotta get to.
That's true.
No, this was fantastic.
I generated what I generated last night, I circulated it. It's not everything.
You leaving?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
I don't know how to do.
Well, you stuck it out.
no, I gotta head to meeting
Not
something.
an accountant.
Send me an email and I'll tell you how to use those. Read them and look at it.
About what they.
The spirit you guys did pass on the river, I'd be curious to see
Oh,
what
yeah.
you guys have. I'd like to include
You know
that.
what?
Very nice to meet you.
Good luck with it.
Thank you so much. You're there.
Love the work you guys
They're
do.
there.
Yeah, the work you guys are doing is phenomenal.
Well, thanks, appreciate
So,
it.
very
we
eye-opening,
talked about
very-
it a lot in my
I
work.
hope it expanded your
It
thinking.
is.
And
It's gonna help
my
with the
graphic
reports that we're
instructor
doing
worked
and
13
working on
years
stuff for the
down here
city,
in
so.
Mill. And he said in the day,
I'll get you a
we
card
could
too.
push a broom and earn a living and have a family in the mill. You didn't have to have any skills.
I think I gave you my new card,
But
right?
in the modern plants.
I think so, yes.
you have to have skills. So what do we do with those
Give me another
kids?
one.
Yeah, it looks kinda like that
That they
one.
don't have the capability to just basic work. Where are those offspring being the future? Plus, they've been on sometimes public assistance, they're one work. think work has value. Everybody feels better.
I agree.
So what do we do
Absolutely,
about
thank you.
I
Thanks
mean,
for
I
helping
don't
with
worry
the
about
event.
my kids, or if I ever had them.
Appreciate you.
But they're gonna do it,
Excellent.
but what do we do with that
Take care.
population?
Very nice
Which we're always gonna have.
Thank you, very nice meeting you.
Those are the ones I was referring to, they're gonna have a hard time.
Well, and people we do know that work these lower paying jobs, you're right, they work two or three jobs and they're still not making.
You know, what that group I was referring to the hospital, they were the ones that, the building department. And AI took all that over.
Or Mike, I'll be in touch.
Okay,
I
then,
don't know.
thanks, Nick.
Sure.
This is
So
serious.
you're gonna have to go back to school and be retrained.
Yes.
Well, why do they have to go back to school? Why couldn't we have a click training session that's not in a school, but it's just the healthcare, updates or something?
Well,
It's,
you could, but I guess we're thinking, like, what are we doing with them now?
yeah, but as soon as you use the words, go back to school, they think of high school and.
I don't mean that, because I come from vocational education, so
Yeah.
I don't
and
think
I
that
did
way.
too. I taught for 7 years in a vocational high school. I definitely believe in
So,
it.
there's many ways to learn, but
Yeah.
you're gonna have to, I don't know, I feel bad for people today.
Well, you know what, I'm advised a lot of our kids to go to the trade school.
Absolutely.
Because one, a lot of them that went to college, degrees in psychology, those kind of
Yeah,
things, don't
Well, I'm just
prepare
gonna
them
get
for
him
the
one that
real
doesn't live
world.
in Bama. That's
And try to get somebody to come to your house and do any of those jobs
Yes,
today. I don't know, it's,
yeah, sometimes the trades, they're just as in demand as the
and
doctors.
you want great people in the trades.
Right.
You want somebody that can have thinking skills. I don't know, for too long they pushed the lower kids into VOTEX. And we get these kids, think, I don't know what we do with them. And then they used to have that hands and mind program in 9th grade where they would train them that do learn basic math, that put them through all kind of safety training. So when they came to 10th grade, they'd be better ready to go into the vocational programs.
Yeah.
But then they did away with that program because every time something works, they end it.
Yeah, and see, the vocational technical school I was in, one of the things we focused on is it was set up with what we called Week About. So juniors mentored freshmen, seniors mentored sophomores. So they were basically, half of their teaching was coming from their peers.
That's right, and that's how it is in
Yeah.
most schools like that. It's
And-
wonderful.
They had a program, they had a lottery where you could, for having your house built by the school. And if you bought a land and you had an approved plan, you could enter this lottery, and if you got drawn, all of the labor for the construction, all you had to buy was the land and pay for the materials. Everything else was provided by the school. So the students would come in and do the foundation, students would come in and do the basic woodwork, and then the finishing work was a different shop. And the cabinet making was done, and everything went into it, so they got to see it. We had students who were making more on a weekend than their teachers did by working a whole week. And they were getting on-the-job training, and this was high school. And what we told them was, you may decide to go on to college, but you're not going to have to work the hours that somebody else is, because you're not gonna be working minimum wage jobs. You're gonna work a couple of, a weekend or something during the summer, and you're gonna have everything you need for the next semester.
It's a wonderful system, I think.
Vocational technical, not everyone is college bound, and I think, reading for being able to do it, because we always told like the kids who come into plumbing, you have to be able to read the code.
Yeah.
And you have to understand the code,
Yeah.
or you can't go out and do it. for electricians, you've got to be able to read the code. And we used that as our teaching tool of why they needed this skill. And I had cosmetology students in like chemistry and biology, and I'm like, part of your licensing test is over basic anatomy and stuff.
Chemistry.
Yeah, chemistry.
I know.
And I'm like, this is something you need. But at least then they had a purpose.
That's why I liked working in that school, because most of my students did see the purpose for why they were there.
Mhm.
Oh, well.
Well, I'm the only one that's not, if I don't go out there, I won't eat a donut. And I'm trying, I done lost 40 pounds, and I'm trying to really slim down.
No?
So, I drink coffee, but I don't, I watch it. I drink maybe 1 cup.
Yeah. I gotta avoid the caffeine, so I'm like, I don't know. Maybe they got the water in the water jug. I can get some of that. And the thing is, I don't think we disagree on what we need. We disagree on the possibility of it ever happening because of community inertia.
Yeah, it's, Monessen is a classic example.
Yep. And it takes somebody who's brave enough to buck the established system with whatever, support they need to keep it going and
Right.
stick it out a few years to prove the concept.
Is that like a,
I still have not been able to connect.
51% thing, or like a majority?
No.
Or is it more than that, like
No, it just has to be a majority vote.
Yeah.
But that would be a hard sell.
Right. Sit down.
Would be, but
No
how-
chair.
You have to, you redefine everything about your city. Carl's right, you don't have a mayor and a council, you have a board of commissioners.
Uh-huh.
And they have powers that are assigned by the vote.
Yeah.
It's just a,
I just wonder how much Monessen has changed. Is it changed enough in its population demographics to be willing to do something new?
You still have
you know,
deck of
when I
cards?
first came here, I was convinced
know.
that Mass was not willing to change anything. Everybody was old.
Those are just blank ones.
I
Yeah.
think that
Oh, the
I've
blank ones.
been somewhat
Okay.
promoting, change is a good
Well,
thing.
Yeah.
Change is a
Yeah.
positive.
Oh, those are
Change-
blank
Oh, yeah.
cards.
It's a tough sell.
It's a tough sell.
Yeah.
When I was working for El Paso Natural Gas, at one time they fired all the vice presidents and managers above me, and I reported directly to the president of the company of a $1 billion company.
Yeah.
And you know what? I looked at it and I said, in the midst of mass confusion, there always exists opportunity. And that's the way I look at things.
Yeah. The old silver lining, rainstorm kind of thing, phrased differently, huh? Yeah.
Okay. Now we get on with the fun part. It's all fun part. So does everybody have a deck of cards? These are yours to keep. Dan, did you get one?
No. Thank you.
We have a few left over. Yeah, right. Okay, so that reframing exercise we just did with the 4 different scenarios, one of the purposes of these cards, and these were made just for Monessen, so they're Monessen specific, is to quickly develop reframing scenarios. So I don't know if your cards are sorted properly, but if you can pull out, there's some driver cards, they're sort of blue at the top. So pull out your drivers. And then there should be some shop cards, which are light blue. Pull out all those. And then there should be some constraint cards. I don't have any constraint cards, Lynn. Oh, they're the black ones. Got it.
Yeah, I like everything. Although somebody missed their blank cards, I sorted them out of somebody, so
No, that
there's
was-
supposed to be 4 blank cards in your deck. If you don't have those, let me know.
Okay, you got your three card types, and you put them face down on your table. Constraint card, driver card. All those are right there. And the shot cards. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is just pick 2 random, don't look at them, but just pick 2 random constraints and 2 random drivers, or the top ones on your deck will be fine.
Okay.
And then, so take a look. So what I got, so drivers are largely positive things that are pushing you towards a certain destination.
2 blues, 2 blacks. Dark blue is purple, whatever color.
Yeah. And constraints are the things that limit you, your ability to do things. So they may have 2 drivers and 2 constraints, and you can turn them over and look at them. So what I got is a driver that the energy grid decentralizes, that we have local generation. And I also got aging population increases demand for services. And for constraints, I got governance overload and climate events regularly disrupt infrastructure. So you may need to shuffle to make sure you don't get the same set I got. So the question is, what is, again, in 2044, what does Monessen look like in those cases? So the decentralized energy grid is one thing I got, the aging population, increasing demand for services. So we don't rely on central power, but we do continue to have the need for services in hospitals and healthcare and senior centers and things for the aging population. And then the climate events, in my case, could be something like floods on the Mon River and increasing need to adapt to that, and governance overload. Things are changing so fast with AI, with anything else, that governance can't keep up with it. We can't keep up with the oversight of all those things.
In Pennsylvania, that might be a real
Right.
possibility.
So what does Monessen look like in that case? I'm not real sure what the advantage of having power decentralized, but at least we control our own power. We're not paying for generation somewhere upstream. Maybe we've developed some solar power that was brought up yesterday, or some micro reactor power, so we have some independence there that could feed the multi-manufacturing system that we talked about earlier, the hundreds of small productions, so that would be an advantage. Governance overload is kind of a downer for us, so people, because the code enforcement, the police, the zoning can't keep up with the demand, people are taking advantage of that and going wherever they want, so there's a little bit of anarchy there. Who wants to share? Ron, what did you get for drivers and constraints?
Well, I got resilience is prioritized over efficiency. The other one was intergenerational policy focus increases. The problem with all that is my constraints, which climate events regularly disrupt infrastructure. That's a very true thing in Monessen. Local identity shifts to an innovative hub. These aren't too far out of line.
So in 2044, if this is the case, it's more of the same. It's
More of the
just-
same.
What would you do to,
Get off the same.
yeah, for example, the climate change disruptions? What would you do?
Well, hopefully, the Ron Mozer of the past fixed the problem so we don't have the same kind of issues.
Yep. Yeah.
So is that it? You already know what the issues are? It's just a question of getting together the resources?
We've invested $24 million in fixing that problem. Hopefully, it's not a problem in 2044.
Okay.
But are you prepared for increasing climate diversity? So
Have you
the
read
floods come
this?
more often.
I tend to think that we are, but the 100-year storms seem to happen every other year now.
Okay. Who else wants to share their collection of cards? Let's see.
Okay, for a driver, I have remote work enables urban flight into small towns.
Okay.
Pittsburgh's moving into small towns.
Yeah. And the constraint is population doubles in 10 years.
Because they're all moving.
Yeah.
So that's consistent.
Hopefully, we're ready for those things.
Huh?
Hopefully, we're ready for those
Yeah.
things.
Well, you don't know the houses yet, but yeah.
We got places for the houses to be.
Yeah.
And 10 years is time to build them,
Yeah,
Right.
hopefully.
2 years is time to build.
So those are your drivers and constraints.
The other driver is autonomous transportation becomes widespread.
Okay.
So their commute is, they don't have to, you know, if they wanted to commute and
Just hop in an
Hop in a
autonomous
vehicle.
Uber.
read your book and enjoy the ride.
The constraint, I'm not sure how this ties in at first glance, fragmented global order.
Ah,
Regional blocks dominate systems.
yeah, so
That's the scary.
in the bigger picture, the United States isn't necessarily the only entity that you're responding to. It may fractionate into smaller groups, or, so governance is changing. So you can't depend
Yeah.
necessarily on the federal government to bail us out, kind of things. So that's where having an independent power grid would be useful. What'd you get, Karen?
I think mine were already gotten, the remote work and the Indian population.
Oh, yeah, we should have had a shuffle step in there.
Do you want me to?
Pick
Pick
some more,
two
just
more?
tell me what you get.
So far, this has been great because we've actually been discussing these things.
Yeah,
Yeah, advanced manufacturing returns to the US.
yeah, okay. So that's back to what we were talking about earlier. Maybe we regain our process knowledge and learn how to manufacture again.
And then constraint, community ownership replaces outside investment.
So a citizen group in Monessen decides to come together as, you know, a cooperative, and they're going to help fund this manufacturing.
That ties in right to how do you get you need to have the community work together
Yeah.
for a common goal.
And it may not have to be
Goals.
the whole community,
Yeah.
but enough for momentum.
You get another constraint?
You already did that.
Oh. There's the train.
Yeah. You can learn to tune out a train with another siren.
I tell you what, we all loved it when we were laying in bed near the train going at night.
No large employer anchors the economy.
Ah, maybe it's a bunch of small ones or remote work. Dan, what did you get?
The drivers, again, remote work enables urban flight and energy grid decentralizes.
Yeah.
And the constraint resilience first economy and environmental stewardship becomes the core value.
Yeah, yeah.
No pollution from
So that,
anything yet.
yeah, that's an interesting one. If environmental stewardship is the core value, that means it's higher than making money, for example. So, or preserving things, so that might send you in a different direction.
That means the coal pile next door
Right,
diminishes.
it's gotta go.
But we said we were gonna get rid of the large employers, so.
Bishop Bass, what'd you get?
I've been shifting around.
Yeah, thanks. I should have said shuffle your cards.
Which
right?
ones did you want?
But my driver is that the climate change reshapes river usage and that AI replaces 40% of routine jobs.
Oh my.
Oh, wow.
You want the constraints.
Uh-huh.
The local identity shifts to innovation hub,
Yeah.
and the community ownership replaces outside investment.
Yeah, yeah.
And we sort of talked about this already, that since AI is gonna be a reality and it's gonna impact a lot of jobs, then we are gonna have to, from a city standpoint, shift to doing something else different.
Yeah.
And these different hubs and different organizations, different jobs, groups formulating to create employment is one thing. And that on the community ownership, I hope I'm interpreting this right,
Yeah, yeah.
that people, our city, the citizens will have to get more involved in our community as opposed to bringing outsiders in to do the work for us economically and all the other areas.
Yeah. So, one thing you can do with it, and the reason I'm giving all these to you, play it with your friends, because it's a lot of what we just did with the 4 scenarios. You know, ask them, what is it like in 2044? Pick your epic. What assumptions have to change? What would you do today? But another point I would like to make with these, just pick another driver or constraint in, it doesn't matter which, but don't pick it from the top of your deck, pick it from the bottom or the middle, somewhere randomly. And then, you know, so I picked climate events, disrupted infrastructure. What I had before is governance overload, and, oh, I got the same one twice, I didn't know there's 2 of them in there.
Yeah, but there's, the subtitles are
Yeah,
different.
let me pick a different. Fragmented global order. So now I have to rethink. I've got another constraint, or you can do it with another driver. The whole world could change just because of that one driver or constraint. So the advantage of the cards is it allows you to wander a large range of different futures. And just by virtue of which cards you have, you need to think about that, the assumptions and the values in that future. So you can just, you know, keep shuffling them in and out and see, oh, well, that changed, what would I do different now? The point is, there is no single future. The future is a cone of random possibilities. We need to start thinking about what are the common strategies that help us in a large number of possible futures, as opposed to the one future that we're assuming. So the cards allow you to think through a large amount. Now pick a shot card.
Well, I'm sorry, I like this constraint. Trust in state and federal government institution collapses.
Collapses. Yeah.
Well,
I think that's happening.
well, yeah, it always does.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go through cycles.
Yeah, I mean, prohibition was terrible for, you know, increasing trust in government, for example. And then they got rid of prohibition, and trust in government didn't go up much because of the Depression. And it only really recovered in World War II, because we were, you know,
Yeah.
basically unified in a war effort.
Yeah.
It's like 9/11, as horrible as it was, it brought this nation together
Yeah.
for a year or two. I mean, it was, everyone was American first. I didn't last very, but things aren't going to.
3 years. Yeah.
3 years, okay.
So far, all mine are very consistent with what I think is the future's gonna be.
Well,
So pull the
So,
shot.
so pull a shock card out, just pick one. It's the blue one. I pulled out a long-lasting global pandemic hits the globe, so this has actually happened in the past, so it's
My
very
whole
funny.
thing just fell
That's what I
apart.
just pulled out.
What did you pull out?
Same thing.
Government systems collapse under complexity.
Uh-oh.
All my complexity
So what,
things
so what?
failed.
So the transient behavior is not good in this case.
Not good at all.
Anybody else get any interesting shocks?
A
Yeah.
major company relocates to Monessen
Ah.
unexpectedly.
Well, there goes my shop.
8,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but, you've gone towards the micro communities and the manufacturing or the service or whatever, the craftsmen, and all of a sudden, a major employer wants to come in. Can your small stuff survive?
Yeah.
Is
Well,
it even desirable?
Is it even desirable?
It all depends on how you can disperse that company within the existing real estate and the existing community. Because like, in Coatesville, Lucan Steel converted itself from a steel maker to a foundry. They basically went strictly to electric, ovens and basically started making specialty steel for specialty products, and that's all they do now. And so the company looks completely different than it did, 60 years ago, 70 years ago.
Anybody else get a good shock?
A cyber attack disrupts infrastructure for months.
Totally believable.
Yeah.
What happens to your world when that
Yeah.
happens? Yeah.
You don't have to pay your electric bills anymore, because you might not have electricity
Right.
either.
Yeah, and think of if our GPS system was attacked, and all of a sudden GPS went down.
Who's the last person to read a paper map?
That's right.
Me.
That's right.
And your banking
And
system,
actually navigate.
because the
too.
GPS, the clocks
Yeah.
in the GPS system.
Yeah, all your ATMs go out.
Yep.
You know, I'm really following this. I tell you why, about 25 years ago, I was in New Orleans at a class, and they had one guy on the program that was talking about the future. And he talked about driverless cars,
Yeah.
you didn't need keys, and nobody really believed him.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah, again, you can't predict the future. The future is fundamentally unknowable. But all of these
Yes.
drivers and constraints come from real world thinking. People have thought of these, and they're absolutely possible. Some of them have already happened, as Ron points out.
I
So
was
this,
in Austin here just a week ago, and I'm driving down the highway on my motorcycle, and I look in the car beside me, there's nobody in the car. Nobody, it's a
Yeah.
Waymo car. There's nobody in the car, and it's going down the.
I've ridden one of those, and it's freaky, let me tell you.
Well, if you think of Star Trek, for those of us who are Trekkies, if you look at all the technology that was available in Star Trek, and how many of those are real today?
Exactly.
The tricorder where you can just flip it and talk to somebody who's, 100 kilometers and miles away. We got that with our cell phones,
How about Dick Tracy talking?
Yeah.
Wristwatch, now that's going back a ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, we still got that one, but
like to fly.
we have, those injectors that they use for the med, we actually have through the skin injectors where it doesn't involve the needle. There are some medicines that can be delivered.
All
that way.
technology was invented on Star Trek, we're just getting around to making it. So there's one other card I like.
Arthur C. Clarke claimed he was all good at, Star Trek stole it.
Well, okay. There's a purple deck, the trade-off card, or implication cards, I mean.
Yeah, it's still in your big deck.
Those are just, as you're thinking through your world that you've created with your drivers and constraints and shocks, if you're having trouble thinking of what the implication is, you can just sort of flip through this and see some things that might jog your memory or your thoughts. And then just think about that implication. So what, I just pulled one out at random. New partnerships are needed. Partnerships with
We
who?
got the same one.
Yeah, what are we talking about? Sonora and Bell Vernon, or the state of Pennsylvania, or
Something we just
industry,
talking about, right?
commercial partnerships. It's just a way to stimulate your
Absolutely.
conversation that you're having. And then the other ones we went through yesterday, the assumptions, the aspirations, the values, are all things that we, and the trade-offs are things that we talked about. So this is just a novel way, I like it, to convey information and stimulate thought. When you're having trouble finding something on TV to watch, pull out your deck of cards and just think.
Invite your friends over.
Invite your friends over.
Well, or if you're having a new committee, you know, a bunch of new people come onto a committee, and they need to think broader about Monessen, that it doesn't have to be 100% as it always has been, because you want them to think broader, do a cup program for this. It's a great way to start new committees and get them on track with the broader thinking.
So this is a tool for you. That's all. I don't know what you. I'd love to hear if you continue to use them and think about them. Have any insights that come from them? Let us know, because we're trying this out. I think this is a useful thing.
Interesting. Gotta figure out a way to use this.
This could replace city council meetings, play card games, poker night.
But it might disrupt some of the head-to-head, think, you know, has to be my way, has to be my way. Well, let's think it broader.
Okay, so we've done some reframing here. We've thought about some different futures. I'm interested, what did you learn? What do you think we should stop doing or thinking in Monessen based on some of this expanded? Any ideas?
I'm not sure that's the proper way to frame this. Now that we've thought about this, what can we do differently?
So one thing could be just how you think about the problem. Which
Exactly.
leads you to a different. Maybe we should stop thinking that getting a major employer here is the only way to have a future economy. Maybe there's some
Well,
other.
disrupt somebody I can pick up.
Yeah, because we hear it every council meeting.
Have them play the game.
Yeah,
Is there,
it's gonna happen.
how do you get more people involved in what's going on in this room? Like disseminating information to the public to have, you know, some knowledge of what, and maybe have their say, you know, their say-so, so they actually feel like they're being listened to by
Yeah.
the people in charge.
Somehow or other, we've got to come up with, and this is something Karen's always talking to me and others about. We've got to find a way to encourage people to want to be involved.
Right.
Once they get involved, we can provide the incentive for them to stay involved, incentive for them to be rewarded in what they're doing. But you gotta somehow or other get them to come forth and say, I'm interested in helping somebody out. That's a problem.
I know, could you guys try with the city meeting, or whatever you call it, the open meeting, a couple, who shows up?
We've tried all kinds of things.
Yeah, they don't show up.
The music in the park is the best example of getting community involvement that I think we've done thus far. We hold these events and we're trying to figure out who is going to help us out. Now, we're having trouble getting enough people to help us with it, but we're getting a participation in the crowds that is reasonable. It's what I would expect. And I'd like to see that continue. I think it will grow as we continue on.
But we need help.
We need help.
We need help. My two kids help me, but, you know, my daughter's traveling from Pittsburgh to help me.
But yet you can't get the next people across the street to come help.
Give me a break here.
Yeah, I understand.
What, like I just learned today from Ron, or it's reinforced, people complain, well, brought this up numerous times, about the taxes across the street. Well, if they knew that it was, because they blame council and mayor for
But it
that.
has nothing to do with us.
But they don't know that.
Right.
How do we get that out there so they know it's exactly what you told me, it's reassessment, it has to be this way and that way, so they quit saying, well, I'm not gonna help the city because the mayor can't even get that done. But but they don't know that.
I don't have the power to get that
No,
done.
I know you don't, I'm just asking that as a general question.
So I'm hearing two things to start doing. One is you want more people engaged in thinking about a brighter future. I think that's great. And then there's a sort of transparency or a communication of information, which which might be, a separate effort. We have a marketing campaign or a strategic messaging campaign that gets the word out about how taxes are filed, so.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing. Joel's from the same place I am, of course. But in Alamogordo, the local bank, of all places, came up with this concept, let's have this lunch and learn. And the idea is, everybody bring a sack lunch for them to eat. And they will provide a presentation during that lunch and learn. We should be doing those kinds of things at the library here, where maybe we have a lunch and learn on taxation and so forth. We have another one on the future of whatever we want to do. Maybe that would help reinforce people coming to the library too. But I don't know, it's just a thought.
So thoughts are.
So one thing I would say, there's another category of things, which is the things we want to experiment with. So in your case, maybe a lunch and learn is an experiment to see if we can better communicate and get more community involvement. You might find out the answer is yes, in which case, pat yourself on the back. You might say it didn't work, so let's try something else. But you have to do those deliberate experiments. Another example is, we talked about making Monessen a remote work location where no jobs here, but people live here. Maybe you should have a marketing campaign to target people like that, people that live in Pittsburgh or living in pretty apartments. Tell them, if you move to Monessen, we'll give you a nice place, cheap, and you can work from there and target a demographic and see if it works. And if it works, do more of that. If it doesn't work, okay, we tried that, move on. So adopting a spirit of sort of trying things out is what I'm trying to. Don't do things just because you have to do it or you're going to a clear goal. Try some things.
Well, when we sort of discussed this, the other suggestion is you have a population here that needs to be informed, but you also have investors on a wider scale, multi-county probably, that need to be informed as well. And they're probably halfway ignorant, or they're just dealing on rumor, woe, and innuendo, and getting them straight on what your goals are and saying forthrightly, here's your opportunities. Do you see the opportunities for you here?
What's the thought of it, as far, of course, because it would cost money, the Monessen has a website, but having that website run professionally, where you can disseminate this information to everybody who can look at it at any given time. You could even put, there's a thing for developers, there's a thing for taxes, and have that run by, not by staff here or something, but somebody who is a website professional.
That's what we really need, because websites need to be very dynamic. A website that never changes is a boring website. You look at any company that runs a website, it
Trust
changes
me,
frequently.
We've tried that though, again. The people you most want to contact are not people who will go to a website. So to inform the people who are sort of on your side, that's fine, but
Then how do you get to the people?
Well, again, one of the things I think that's come up is your inability to view a positive future is partly controlled by your present culture, right? Okay, that just has to be addressed. That is a problem, and you can't wait to just outlive them. Though for some of them that is the only, you will not change them. So, you have to convince people that the past is not the predictor of the future. The whole idea is, the future is scary because it's unknown, but it offers some really super exciting opportunities. That's the message you have to give to people if you're going to start changing their culture. Yes, the mill is never coming back, but look, we can think of ways in which we can make Monessen a vibrant place where people can live and have good lives if the mill doesn't come back. And just, so I don't know how you that has to be a very slow process. Culture never changes quickly. And you can't beat up on the people who don't want to change because they won't change. You know, beating up on them doesn't have it, you know. As I've told Joel, I work, my husband's an ordained deacon in the Episcopal Church, and I work for the diocese, trying to convince people to change how they're running their parish because it's dying. You know, you want to take a club and beat them over the head, but that won't work. So I think part of your strategy has to be what are all the tools you can put together to convince people that the future really has exciting, and that's what this whole process is about, trying to think about all the things you can confront, all the good ways in which you can, you know, there's a great Peter Drucker comment. He says the best way to predict the future is to create the future. And this whole process is to try and make you a more active participant, not as a, you know, I'm simply going to have to be reactive. I'm going to be proactive. And I mean, that's all high-sounding words, but you do need to translate that into something that consistently pushes all the time. So that, okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
we predict-
basically, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Well,
Go.
so we are looking at 2044 and saying this is where we want to be, or a vision of where we want to be. But what we really are, we're sitting here in 2026, and we need to do things that move us in that direction. As an example, you know, lunch and learn type thing. Perhaps you put together a schedule of lunch and learns, and we promoted our music in the park, which we're promoting as well. And we pass this out, and we try to build momentum for such a thing to encourage it.
Yeah, here are all the exciting things Monessen could be.
Right.
And use more than the web page to get out your information, because a generation's not going there, so it's somebody
It's the people that
who's,
go up and listen to the old time reggae music, that we're having music in the park.
well, but also your TikTok, you know, get to the younger generation and let them know, hey, there's gonna be this contest or that going on there that might target them.
Yeah, no, you're outside of my realm. I don't
Yeah.
understand those things.
Well, that's just it, but you need to have a generational representative who can say that. Go to, tell the high school you want their student council person to come, you know, give feedback on some of your working meetings where they can sit and listen.
That's excellent.
Mike has
Well,
something to say.
we're piggybacking on our $75,000 grant that we got for the downtown development project. The second phase of that, we're looking with DCED for approximately another 75 to 150. One element of that is all internet access, web page, email, all the youth groups, anything that we can go for access to tell them what we're doing, to get that message out and then work from that point. So that would be phase two. The phase one is this development seminar and this meeting that we would like to have with the developers, and that's the first phase. The second phase would be this outreach that we desperately need.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that developer conference is
I do too, yeah.
fantastic
Yeah.
first step. Here's something that'll blow your mind. So, you know, when you go to Google and you Google some topic, the first few responses you get back are sponsored topics. That's how Google pays for it themselves. So marketers use that. They do management campaigns to get their sponsored thing on the clicks. Well, people don't necessarily go to Google anymore to find information. They go to an AI. You ask an AI a question, it gives you this response. Was it influenced by some clicks or some sponsors? I can guarantee you marketeers are working on how to get their information to pop up first in your AI response. That's the future of this kind of communication, so you need to get in front of that kind of thing. How do you create, and the way you do that is you create content on the web or in the places that these AIs link that's credible. That means that lots of people have linked to it, and there's lots of validation of it. If you have a really strong website, the AIs will pull from it, and it'll show up at the top of those queries. It's no longer enough just to do the Google management. So there's an idea of something to think about.
Hey, how
When
do
people
you-
Google Monessen,
Yeah.
they'll get positive information.
How do you determine what a credible subject to
Yeah.
respond to?
It's-
You know,
it's-
and just
yeah.
using his example, which was a good example, I would like to know how many people are sitting around upset because of the tax bill rate that's going on. Is that a group that we really should be worried about, or is it just a church? When things like that come up, I look at how many people are really saying this. Is this really an issue, or is this just a
Versus
few?
just a few people.
Yes.
Yeah, are they numerous or just loud?
The internet is designed around that whole concept, because if you start researching some particular item and you start spending time on that, it will find other things that go along with that. That might be political, it might be social, it might be whatever, but it will take you down these very deep paths if you don't watch out, because you spend a little bit of time looking at things. If, as an example, I send you an email about some particular product, and you respond to that product, I'll bet you start getting advertisements for that particular product. The internet is very, very much alive, looking at what people are doing and paying attention to it. This AI, ChatGPT, and all the other ones, I have to believe, are doing the same thing. You interact with ChatGPT, it starts understanding who you are, what you are, it'll start thinking like you. You're going down a path that is very, very scary, because it will start coming up with ideas that you really like, because you told it what you like, that are very, very dangerous. And I think
It always agrees with you.
it always agrees with you.
Everybody wants that.
Sick of it.
Everybody likes
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's a scary prospect. It gets better and better at what it does, because it knows you better and better.
Mhm.
But at the same token, it is leading you down a path.
Yeah, and leading your neighbor down a different path.
Exactly.
They're dividing. So, we talked yesterday about the divisiveness going on, the factions. Is there anything to be done about that? Any thoughts, ideas? Just getting better information out, that might help.
I like Karen's response this morning. You said we just have to weather it and move ahead.
Yeah, it seems like in this town, everywhere you go, I stopped by this morning to get gas, and I went in the gas station to get my receipt, and happened upon a person, immediately starts yammering at me.
Mm.
You just stand there and look at it, and the best thing I do is shake my head, because I don't really care what people say. You know, I base my opinion, whatever I think, on what you've said you're gonna do and whether or not you've done it. And I just thought, oh my God, I can't go anywhere.
Right.
And I don't even belong to that many organizations, because I can't imagine what it would be like having to listen to this.
Yeah.
And it's never, what can I do to help you? It's,
You didn't
And
do
like-
this, or
like
go
all-
do this for me.
yeah.
Like all communities, Joel, we've had factions over the years that have replaced one another in the political cycles. And that's common to all local governments and
Part of democracy.
part of the process. But weathering it and moving ahead, I think, is what Ron and Karen and the others currently on council trying to move things forward are doing, which is listen to the detractors, but we have an agenda, let's try to keep this moving on and weather their disputes and that sort of thing for the future. I don't think there's any other way to go to have success with that part. If you buy into that with them and you get into the pit, you know, you're gonna be fighting those battles every day rather than moving ahead.
Because we're assuming that those people are never gonna change their minds, they're just,
Exactly.
which may well be
Yes.
the case.
Yes.
But there's somebody famous who said, you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And I do believe that. If you're not gonna help,
But if you tell them, hey, there's an opportunity for you to help make this better, if you'll come to this meeting on this night, you know, some may come and listen, but at least you've given them an opportunity, and it kind of shuts them up a little bit.
but I think in council and with us, we've always told people to show up. You know, if you have an issue, come to City Hall, there's always somebody who's gonna listen to you there. I think it is a user-friendly place. If you choose not to go there and you still choose to complain, then it's on you.
You
If you're not, I mean,
Can you imagine if you were a mayor, you know, when they go out to the different
no, I
places?
can't,
They get blamed for everything.
Again, in my long career, part of the problem is people are always looking for simple solutions for complex issues. Future of Monessen is a complex issue. As I've often said, that if you find a simple solution for a complex problem, you can be sure it's wrong because it's a simple solution to a complex problem. So again, you have to educate folks that figuring out the way forward for Monessen is not one silver bullet. It's all of us working together to understand the complexity of the future and look at the range of options to be able to redirect ourselves as the world develops. You know, that there are things you can do to prepare for that now. But don't come to me every month and say, I want you to solve the problem in the next round. That's just,
Well, the thing that's interesting to me,
unproductive.
the better that we do our business as city council, the fewer people will show up. People show up when you're not doing things the right way and they want change. And you can see that in all the previous administrations. When they get in trouble, they start crowding City Hall. People start coming. As long as I don't see a lot of people in our meetings, I think things are going well. When we start having these groups in, like the firemen, they come in and start doing things, it scares the dickens out of me. I've done something wrong.
Well, something that.
Hopefully they'll tell you what that is.
Rather
But-
than look at it as wrong.
That's the whole point, though. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
The better we do our job, the fewer people are gonna come complain to us or sit in our city council rooms.
When's the last time you got a phone call that thanked you for doing something?
This morning,
Really?
Yeah.
really. I get that frequently too. That is the only reason that keeps me going, is because there are people that call me up and say, you did something to help me out. That gives me such satisfaction, I just want to continue doing things. And it happens every day, and it did happen this morning.
Well, I agree with the way you're looking at that, because if there was a major crisis, some problem, it would be packed.
That's right, that's right. And it always has been. When things are
Yes.
going very wrong in the city,
Yes.
it gets packed.
So let's think about some of the things that are going on today and how they relate to multiple futures. Would anybody argue that destroying blighted houses is a bad thing to do?
No, but there's been a few.
There's been,
Yeah, I
There's been a
just,
few.
I got a call here yesterday
Yeah.
that the guy was complaining because we were tearing down blighted homes and therefore people were being relocated. So I explained to him,
We have never just
No.
demolished a house that had anybody living in.
Yes.
Never. And it
Never.
won't happen.
So that's a communication thing again, just being transparent, letting people know.
By the same token, there's houses that have been demolished. On 14th Street is a perfect example. You look at the house from driving down the street, and it doesn't look so bad. But the inside of that house is gone. It's just beyond anything that could possibly be rehabilitated. All you would have is a shell. The point being is, people drive by there, you demolished a house that was in perfectly good shape.
Yeah.
It wasn't in perfectly good shape. It was horrific.
Can you take photographs and put them on?
And it doesn't matter, they're not gonna look. All they know is when they drove by it, it looked like a good house. The fact that you opened the front door and you fell into the basement means nothing to them.
see, I think that when you're in public service, you gotta be thick-skinned and be focused.
Absolutely.
And try to, you do need to hear what people are saying, but at some point,
Yeah.
you gotta drown out the static.
But, and it also helps to explain the vision too, so that's one of the, we developed a bunch of different visions. What does tearing down that house do to a brighter future Monessen, and communicating that and getting the buy-in, I think is a big deal. Are there any other things that you're doing today that fit into all these brighter futures? Like, what about working on the sewer system?
Well, I think that all the things, I would like to believe that all the things that I've done are for a brighter future of Monessen.
Mhm.
To the best of my knowledge, I've never done anything that I directly resulted in something that improved me. I've not paved the road in front of my house, and it's one of the worst in the city. That's not where my head's at. The fact that we don't have storm drains popping up in people's yards with raw sewage coming out in their yard, which has happened many times in the past. It's not happening anymore.
It's been years since that's happened, since we started doing our project. We've not had the geysers popping up in places that we used to have geysers popping up. We've not been shutting down the satellite treatment plant because bricks and so forth have been coming off the walls of the pipelines and fouling up the treatment plant and causing huge problems. And yet, I've always said, I don't want to be the mayor of a bunch of vacant lots. But yet, the properties that are blighted have got to go if we're gonna make any room for improvements. There is no way that we can afford to fix that house that's got half the roof missing and the floor just rotted out and on and on and on. We just can't do that. We gotta have room to grow. I would like to believe that the things I've been doing are the right things. Now I'm getting to a point that we've gotta bring in people. We gotta figure out a way to get investment back in Monessen. We fixed our infrastructure. We no longer have a DEP consent decree against us. We no longer have a shortage of available property. We have property available. Let's figure out a way to encourage people to come in. What tools do I have? Taxation's one, so I come up with a LERTA project. Let's reduce taxes. I got the school system where I think that they're on board with it. I think that will happen before the end of this year. The NPP project is something that will cause people to invest. It'll provide money for investment. If we can get these things to happen, we start moving down a path that we can do things. I'm not saying I got all the answers, but I'm saying that's where my head's at. That's one of the things I want to see happen.
Don't undercut your resource as you, the mayor, and the city council is the representative of the city with other levels of government.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's
the reason why I had the commissioners here. I had the
Right.
chief of staff of
They need to
Senator.
be activated in your interest.
And I think that they are.
Good.
I really truly believe that. And what's really interesting, Nate Navala, which sent over here, he's the chief of staff for Representative Ressenthaler. He's a federal state representative in charge of the finance for the country. He is a major player in that. He was at our meeting the first day. I had, sitting over here, Dottie Satan, Staffen, whatever her name is.
Stop.
Satan.
It's not Satan.
I think it's.
Anyway, she's a chief of staff for Kim Ward. Kim Ward is the third most powerful woman in the state. If something happened to Superior, it would fall to Davis, then it would fall to her. She is very powerful, and she was at our meeting. We've had Curtis, he is the chairman of the county. We have the relationship. Every one of those people are strong Republicans, very strong Republicans. And bear in mind, this city is a very strong Democratic group. And yet, I have understood that if we're gonna make headway in this world, you gotta work with everybody. And I do, the best I can.
Elections in progress are one on the margin. They have to be the leading edge of change. And so if they want to have more Republican voters, they need to work where there's Democrats. Because the Republicans are already going to vote for them. Gee whiz, who would have thought?
Okay,
How important is it, or is it, because I think it's important, but when Ron, he's mentioning these things that may seem small, but to me, when he said, well, we haven't had a storm drain come, that's a huge thing, but nobody else knows that in the city. That how do you?
So then we need to have a lunch and learn on what the sewer project amounted to over the last 3 or 4 years that we've invested $20 million in. Then we need to have another one on the taxation. Then we need to have another one on what we're doing for an economic growth. And it needs to be
Right.
somebody other than me just speaking these words.
Right, but I mean, at least, I'm thinking of like, how do you not promote, but so people know, hey, Ron isn't one of those divisive guys.
It's a marketing campaign.
But I mean, how do you market
But
that?
you're one of the voices too, because you say people come in and complain to you and say,
Right.
hey, I know Mayor did
I do.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just
But-
like more of those.
I mean, is it, can you
I
utilize
do-
the newspaper?
how-
Can you have a
Well, I
newsletter?
thought the newspaper would be here, and I will make sure the newspaper gets a copy of what we've done that we can share with me.
Yeah.
There's stories written on what we've done here. I guess we've just gotta keep getting the word out over and over and over again, figure out ways. I'm not looking for any, how many people did I visit when I ran for office this last time? I didn't. I went up a couple streets and everybody said, we're gonna vote for you. I said, fine, vote for me or not. And it turns out, nobody else ran against me that even could qualify within the write-ins.
Yeah.
See, the message I get is that people are saying that they believe that you really have the heart, you know, of the city. You want what's good for the city. So
If I'm not passionate about this city, I'm not passionate about anything.
I just think that, again, we gotta stay focused because you always gonna have the complainers. And it's good, I agree with what I'm hearing, getting the message out. Here, it appears to me that a lot of people don't read the newspaper. They get their stuff online, so that's one area we ought to look at the newspapers, but we gotta look at.
The thing that scares me more than anything is in 3 years from now, because I quite honestly don't want to be mayor beyond that point. And the only way that I can continue any sort of process of what that I started is through the programs that I've initiated, the Nehemiah CDC. These programs have to be strong enough that whoever comes in and takes my role understands that if they continue things, they're gonna benefit from the LERTA project that I did. They're gonna benefit from the CDC project that we did with the Nehemiah. They're gonna benefit from these programs that I've been doing. And they have to continue doing the right thing, or at least they have their own vision, but it's gotta be the right thing.
Okay, so I've written down
That's not politics.
a lot of things about
That's why I asked the guy from Illinois about the mayors.
what we're gonna start doing and keep doing. So you wanna get more people involved, you wanna have some lunch and learns, explain things like taxes and what projects you're working on. The Developers Conference is a really good thing to start. You mentioned about updating your website presence or social media presence. Music in the Park is something we want to move forward with. Bishop, I take your point about let's find who's really disgruntled, what are those populations, and maybe figure out why are they disgruntled, if there's something that we're missing, we're not hearing. Let's do that. We're gonna keep doing things like sewer systems and blighted properties removal, and figuring out how to move on. Is there anything else that
Encourage development with LERTA and the NPP.
Is there anything else you'd like to try, an experiment that's maybe low cost? You know, some examples of that are, we call this we mentioned several times that restaurants are an asset for Monessen. Call in some food trucks and have a food truck day once a week or something, and emphasize that role as a culinary center. See if it works. People come to that.
Yeah, that does work. That does work. That's what we're working on now in Memphis, Tennessee, our national church. There are a lot of restaurants, but they're setting up a lot of food trucks, so when people come out of the convention center, right away they get the offer of food.
It reinforces that Monessen is a place to come to eat. Karen?
Well, a friend of mine, actually, Tamara on the library board, she had come up with an idea a little last year about putting together a flyer of have the restaurants buy into this and publish a little flyer or something like this and take it over to the hotels and motels in Bell Vernon and put it in, and she even went over there and said, if we come up with these, can we put them in your little things like that? And then another lady works at a local winery, and she said all the time people will come there for a tournament for their kids, and they'll say to her, where can I go eat around here? And she said, you need to put together a little flyer, and even for our parks, so that people are there for the day.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's a great idea, but again, how do you get the money for something like that? I thought it was a
Some of these are
wonderful
low cost.
idea.
Like in Colorado Springs, we have Restaurant Week once a year, where
Maybe
all
in
the,
Pittsburgh.
all the restaurants get together and they highlight their best things and have a deal.
Yep.
Everybody flocks into town that week, and then they learn a new place to eat. They eat the restaurant, things like that. Don't
Sounds
cost
like you-
anything. It's just
Sounds like we need a chamber of commerce.
Yeah.
And whatever happened to when we had those, I forgot what you call it, Monessen days, where the city blocked off the streets and everybody came and different churches and organizations.
Cultural.
Cultural days, maybe we ought to look at that. Now, we can't worry about someone saying they don't want that, we gotta look at the whole picture.
Yeah, as you pointed out, that was a church-driven thing.
Churches were the backbones of
We
that.
don't have the
They were,
same
unfortunately.
churches that we have.
I'd say you can't try it, but that was
I'll
the
support it
reality.
100%.
I can give you one church.
The town that Ron and I grew up in had an annual Crazy Days downtown. And it was just a shopping, everybody dress up in some crazy thing, go shop downtown. It was the funniest thing in the world.
And it was all
But it worked.
yeah, they had sales and stuff, and they would, again, they close off that little section of town, and they had racks of stuff and tables of stuff outside the businesses.
Okay, we're about done here. I'm interested now in feedback. Did this help you guys? Do you think it's valuable?
I think it's
I
very
want to
eye-opening.
express my sincere appreciation
Yeah.
for you putting this
Yeah.
together,
It's wonderful.
getting the people together that you brought to the city. I think that's a phenomenal thing, and I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, you offered us a bunch of scenarios, obviously. At what point do you narrow your focus? And I don't want to say put all your eggs in one basket, but, I mean, of course, there are other things you're going to do regardless, like you said, the source system and things like that, but
That's an excellent question. So part of it is what Dr. Hardy said about Peter Drucker. If there's a future you want, drive towards it, make it. So there's part of it that's focusing on it. The other part, because you're just a small town, you're not gonna change the world. Sorry to break it to you. So there's gonna be things that are happening that you can't drive towards. So the value of the scenarios now is what actions do you take that work in the most scenarios or prevent the worst disasters from happening?
What leaves you the most options for being successful in the future? And your immediate or short term should be the things that have the broadest ability to move you towards futures you think are going to be positive. And don't preclude you being flexible for changes you don't see. Again, now that is an art, not a science, but that's the mental framework you want to get yourself into. There are lots of communities that say, I know the singular answer, they go down that, and in 5 years things have changed, and that was dumb as dirt. So, we can't tell you what that is. What we're trying to encourage you is thinking about that, and figure out the things you can start doing now that
I think
move
that's
you
the
in a
key word, is
positive
we have
direction.
to do it.
Right.
We can't depend on somebody coming in from outside and doing it for us. We've got to figure out how to do this ourselves.
Yes. I mean, you will always be victim of outside, as Joel says, outside forces over which you have no control. But you can figure out the things you can control and position yourself best to. And, people, that's how you succeed. I mean,
And this business of strategic foresight, we've just scratched the surface. We've just introduced you to a different way of thinking about things. I would recommend that the city of Monessen adopt a longer term, every once in a while, even at city council meetings, think about some of these scenarios in this anticipatory governance that we talked about. Think about the future as opposed to just always thinking about the present. And it goes on for a long time. We did this for the Space Force for 6 years, but it's something you have to integrate into your process. It's not something that we can do in a day and a half. So hopefully we can come back and do more of this kind of stuff in depth over time and get more people involved.
One thing you've done, you really forced us to look ahead at the future. And I know this isn't a religious thing, but there are even concepts there that I need to look at for our jurisdiction, which is like a diocese as well as my local church.
Absolutely.
And so I thank you for coming in. I appreciate you all.
since we don't have a Monessen Chamber of Commerce, are we aligned with any other chambers to sort of help,
We
help
talked about
promote?
doing, there's a non-valley and
Right.
there's a route chamber.
Yeah,
That's
'cause
two
it's
different chambers.
Monessen, the library's in both of those, but
Okay, there you go. That's
we
what-
utilize those to,
That's all we can do.
right? Yeah, I mean, I hope that's a plan to utilize
Yes.
those chambers to promote Monessen too, right?
That
Are
it
we a
is-
member of Mon Valley?
The city is not, but businesses are.
But we can do it,
But we
Karen, as
can
a
be
city,
member.
yeah.
I know, then we have access to all their stuff.
Right. So if the council would decide that and say that we would love to do that, I would love to
I
interact
think
with
it's a
them.
great idea.
Again, it's a question of, again, how do you view, how you approach the future as a Monessen issue and as a regional issue, and what do you
Yes.
mean by a regional issue? I mean, are there natural partners, or the people who will never partner with you?
Some.
Well, we're in a very peculiar place. We're at the very tip edge of Westmoreland County. You can go outside and you can throw a rock to two other counties. And these two other counties, Washington and Greene, are just right there. There was a politician that came through here a while back and said, you know what, we need to form us a whole new county. And it needs to include the mid-Mon,
Yeah. Charleroi, Denora.
Charleroi, Denora, Monessen,
Yeah, Monongahela.
all that.
Yeah.
But you know what happened to that?
What?
But that is our neighbor. It
No.
couldn't get politics.
Died in committee.
Get the state to go along with it.
Yeah, redistricting is political.
You can have this, what do you call 'em, I think COGS.
Yeah.
You can have COGS, and we do. Our
Sewage.
refuge for garbage is with Mel Vernon. Our COG with sewage is with Denora and Fallowfield. And by the way, we're the most powerful member in those two COGs, because we are the city, we are the most representation. We have those. Now, we could have others, but how do we do this? As an example, our police, if our police was to work with Mel Vernon, and they need it, Mel Vernon, they need our help in the worst kind of way.
They do?
They don't, oh yes, they need it,
Why?
because they don't have enough, they got 2 officers.
That's not
And
good
those
enough.
officers only work 8 hours a day.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
the other 16 hours, they depend on the state.
Yeah, we
The
noticed
state won't
last night.
respond to any sort of domestic issue. They don't have good safety, they don't have the safety net that we have. They come to Monessen, will you help us out? Yeah, we'd love to help you out, but you gotta help us out with the finances of making payment. Well, right now, it doesn't cost them anything to use the state. Although the state doesn't come in for any domestics, it's just a catch-22.
Okay.
So their short-term thinking is gonna make them.
There's 2 things that are very viable in our area that all the communities have issues with. Police, because they're very expensive, and then code enforcement. Those are the 2 areas that I think that we need to have better cooperation with surrounding communities. Those are also 2 of the most difficult things to do. How do you have a code officer that knows people in Monessen and knows people in West Newton, as an example? Which needs to be easy to set up a COG with them if we had the ability to share it.
Do you have the same codes adopted?
Similar. You know, we used to have a code enforcement officer that would drive around town. Grass is too tall, here's a citation. You got garbage in your front porch, here's a citation. You got a gutter that looks like it needs repaired, here's a citation. They wouldn't go to the people and say, hey, you got a problem here, could you fix it? They would just throw citations at it. And he would generate huge amounts of capital coming into the city, but yet he was hated by the residents because they didn't give him an opportunity to make things right. We had another code enforcement officer that came along, and he would work with people. He would go to them and say, you know, your gutter's got problems here, you need to fix it. You know, here, let me explain how it's supposed to be and work with it. A couple weeks later, go by, you still got a problem. Here's a written warning, you need to address this. A couple weeks later, still nothing done. Now you get a citation, but they had every opportunity to fix it. Those are total different ways of enforcing a code that are both very viable and needed, but one is loved by the people and one is hated by the people. Unfortunately, one of them died.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you guys, it's been great.
Thank you very much.
You going to school?
Yep.
Mayor, are we doing lunch though, by the way?
There is lunch across the way there, if anybody wants it, just,
Good job.
Yeah.
That's why you hired me. Just real quick, stop by there and grab something to eat on the way over.
Where, same place?
Same place, yes.
Yeah, let's just go over there.
Okay.
What time are we supposed to be in the school?
Sounds like you have everything.
1 o'clock? I'm not present.
Yeah.
What time is the council meeting?
That is 6:30.
I don't know how many hours.
It's City Hall.
At City Hall, yeah. Purchase from City Hall.
And you're a member, and
And these cards are yours to take.
yeah.
Anthony Wojciechowski.